Here we go. Okay, I'm adding Marek to the call as well.
Nice.
So, red Marek. Okay. And there we go. All right. The YouTube one is up. So let me get that for you guys. Here is the YouTube one. Links coming up in our Discord chat. This is YouTube. Um,
Hello?
hello.
Okay.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
I've never done video call on Discord before.
No problem. No problem. We're not gonna use Discord for the video. Could I have your name again, please, sir?
Marek. Mark na may E.
Mark Namai. Okay.
Marek.
Marek. Nice to meet you. So here's what we're gonna do. You can close the video on this one. We're gonna use a different website
Okay.
for video. Let me get the link for you.
Okay.
It'll come up in the chat. So here, the latest link. It's a GridFam link. So please click on that, and I'll walk you through adding the video source.
Sige.
So yeah, please close your video on Discord.
Okay.
Thank you. Can you hear the others?
I have not.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
There we go. All
Hello.
right, cool. Do you have a Twitter account?
I do.
Okay, so yeah, you'll log into GridFam using your Twitter account.
Okay, sige.
And yeah, let me know when you're calling in, and I will add you to the thing.
Okay.
Hey, shout out to Chico Oranga. Thank you for tuning in from he's the proprietor of Tabletop PH.
Yeah.
See you tomorrow, man.
Hello.
Can't wait. Hey Don, thank you for tuning in on Facebook as well. So we're gonna get the stream underway shortly. Just waiting
Wait.
for the links to pop up and stuff.
I'm already logged in. Saan yung ano? Cause
Saan yung what?
wait. I'm just gonna take a screenshot so you can see what it looks like for me.
Okay, sure. Go ahead. That would be helpful. Yeah, we're just getting set up, so this is still the pre-stream. We've got a few of our guests. Get the stream underway shortly. So yeah, we're just gonna get everyone set up in just a moment. I see everyone piling in on Facebook. No tech support today. Yeah, JP, you left me without tech support today. Thank you so much. That's okay. So yeah. Okie dokie. So you are on GridFam. And okay, so what you want to do is you want to go click on back. Hang on, let me open my own
Okay.
my own window of it so I can walk you through.
Sure.
All right, you should see a call in button like right when you go to the main link, that link I sent you. Like call in
Okay.
right in the middle.
All right.
All right. Let me see if you are indeed calling in. It should take a moment. Did you, were you able to see the call in button?
Wait, no, sorry. I can't. I can't see it. All I see is need help. Join our Discord server. Wait.
Before. Hang on. Are you on the GridFam website?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So before using GridFam. Okay. So you need to allow it to access your webcam and microphone and then click on refresh. So you can click on
I found
the
it.
lock button. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. I will
But this is
check.
gonna be long though, so you guys don't have to because this is gonna be until 7. The call is gonna be long. It's gonna be until 7.
Okay, cool. Let me.
So you don't have to like super Hello.
Hello, hello, hello. Are you on your headset? Cool.
Yes.
All right, nice. And you have been added to the call. I think we can see
Brandon.
everyone at this point. We're just waiting for BJ, who will be calling in later on Discord. He is the vampiric looking cat, I think.
Kato, yeah.
Yeah, Nosferatu. um, so yeah, we're all here. Yes, awesome. Um, let's see. Let's Yeah, so all the videos are up. We are on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Mixer. If anyone watches on Mixer, we are all there, and we have some people in chat as well. So yeah, Michiko, Don, Riveus, who is JP, usual streaming partner, and he is asking, what time does session 0 end tomorrow? Would any of you guys know what time session 0 ends tomorrow?
I do know the game designer's dinner is at
Uh huh.
9. So I think it'll
Ah,
end around 7 or 8. Because I obviously didn't need to do the close up.
okay. Okay, so yeah, there you go, around 7 or 8. But it does start, I think, or the gates open at 11,
Yes,
right?
11.
Yeah, Reg is at
Ingress is
11.
10.
Ingress is 10. Okay, so okay, for walk-ins, that's when people, yeah, can like reg and stuff
No,
and
that's
enter the venue.
for booth
Just for
people to,
designers.
Ah, okay, for the
yeah,
booth. Okay,
yeah,
for the
people to
booths.
To
fix up
to
whatever.
yeah.
Okay, glad we cleared that up. Thank you for correcting me. Um, we got it straight from the designers themselves. So let me just get like some levels. I want to make sure everyone's on the same volume on my end, so that the people watching at home um,
Tell me to put that
will
fish skin
get
in the
more or
plastic bag.
less the same uh, the same audio quality. So
I was the one who placed it in the trash. I didn't hear you tell me to
let's
put it in the
start
plastic
with
bag.
Paul. Paul, can I hear you speak just really
Yep,
quickly?
I'm here. You hear me?
All
Hi.
right,
Yes.
nice. Okay, Marek, let me hear you speak for a bit. Just say hi.
Hi.
Cool. Okay,
There's an
nice.
echo though. Is that
Yeah,
from me?
I'm hearing the echo also from Marek.
One more time, Marek.
Hi.
Let
Hello.
Okay. So you want to go to? Can you see on the left side of GridFam audio video settings?
Yeah.
Could you
Yeah.
mute your microphone on
On
GridFam?
grid farm. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yeah.
There you go. Echo
Okay.
handled,
Mhm.
guys. All right.
I think so.
Jay, can I hear you
Yes.
speak, please?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Nice, thank you. And last but not least, Eigen.
Yeah, I can hear you all.
Okay,
I can hear
cool.
everything.
Yes. Hey, Ray Robles, thank you for tuning in. Um, good to see you. Good to see you. Roll for initiative. Are we? It's something. It's some combat about to drop in on stream. Hopefully not. We are unarmed and defenseless. Um, we are artisans, good sir. Um, all right, so welcome to Dicecast, everybody. I just want to say
Hello.
thank you to Jay, to Paul, to Marek. BJ will be joining us shortly, and to Eigen, who is over there on the bottom right. Thank you for taking time out of your day to join us here on Dicecast. We really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see you guys tomorrow at session 0.
Dito.
So today's
Likewise.
stream, yeah. Today's stream is all about tabletop game design and publishing in the Philippines. It's the third episode of our special table talk series of roundtable discussions with the game designers who will be appearing tomorrow at Gamers and GMs Session 0. That will be at Green Sun Makati. And let me see if I got this right. Ingress for, or people can start attendees can start coming in at 11 o'clock. Is that right? Did I get
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
Yes. So yeah, it's gonna be the first event of its kind, really, like on this scale, with as many game designers and local games, highlighted um, in a single place. So we're really excited. And tomorrow, Dicecast will be there at Table 34. We will be showcasing uh, our streaming setup. And we're there, to talk about streaming. If you're interested in getting started yourself, come by. We've got a nice pamphlet that should help you get started. And you can check out our actual streaming setup for yourselves, ask questions, and all that. So without further ado, I'm going to play you guys the intro, and then we'll get rolling from there. Here we go.
No.
Yeah.
All right. My Discord, I think, just crashed.
Oh, snap. Really?
I think so.
Oh, well, you can still hear us, so it's all good.
Yep. All right.
It's all good. It's all good. It was probably like a hiccup lang. Okay, and with that, congrats ulit to DM Paul Gabat. In case you guys didn't know yet, Paul and a bunch of other GMs. I think, are you all in the Greasy Snitches? Did I get that right?
No, actually, some of them are just part of the Adventures League community.
Uh huh.
Just wanted to write, and then they approach us, and then we're like, now we have 6 adventures that are out in DM's Guild right now.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So yeah, like 6 adventures by all Filipino writers out on DM's
Yes.
Guild. So we will be sharing links and stuff shortly. I just got a message from BJ, who is joining us, our final, participant for today. Let me just add him to the call, and we will get rolling. So hang on. Nosferatu. There we go. BJ, let me know when you can hear us.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey,
All
BJ.
right.
Hey. Hello.
Nice. Okay,
Hello,
let me
everybody.
just get everyone's levels on the same level. How are you, BJ?
I'm fine. I just got back from traveling or commuting rather. Manila. It's kind of like traveling.
We
With the
know.
time, no?
Unfortunately, so.
And now I am doing last minute stitching because my product tomorrow is stitch bound.
Whoa, really? The spine?
Yes. Yes.
Wow, a man of many talents, this guy. All right, so actually, why don't we start just with introductions all around? We're gonna go clockwise, starting with Marek. Why don't you tell everyone, just a short intro, like who you are, where people can find you, and like, I guess, what kind of RPGs you enjoy. Let's start with that.
All right. I'm Marek Sison. I'm from Megalodon Games. We're brothers. My partner is Rui Sison. We design different kinds of games. We, um, in addition to designing different tabletop games, we also run various tabletop RPG sessions every week. And the world that it takes place in is actually what we're going to be showcasing tomorrow in session 0. We're going to have sort of like an alpha version of the campaign guide, as well as various new stuff you can try out, subclasses, a whole entirely new class unique to the world. And yeah, for me, the kind of TRPGs I enjoy are the ones that focus on the role playing. So this is why I actually really enjoy D&D 5e, and also uh, stuff like Fiasco or Core Fate Core. I mean, yeah.
Cool.
So That's about it. You can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page /Megalodon Games.
All right, all right. I will take note of that so that we can add it to the chat later on. Facebook, what is it? Facebook.com.
Yeah, Facebook.com/Megalodon Games. Megalodon, not Megalodon.
Ah,
You won't
okay.
make that mistake.
Megalodon Games. All right. Thank you for that. Okay, let's go to BJ. You're up next. Why don't you introduce yourselves to our viewers on stream?
Oh, hello everyone. I am BJ Resho, and I am known as Nosficato Publishing. I've been sort of active since 2009 when I was making 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons products, and then I stopped a little bit when D&D Next came around, and then suddenly we all have to play test. Then 5th edition came out, and I started writing for 5th edition because my goal is to integrate Filipino culture and mythology into RPGs in general. But as I have gone through the motions of writing for 5th edition, I realized that I wanted to change a lot of the rules to fit the culture of the culture that I'm emulating. So now the system that I'm using is unique to the campaign setting that I'm writing, but it is still using 5th edition numbers at the base. Speaking of numbers, I'm an actuary by day, so that goes into my design a little bit.
Hey, what?
Other than
Sorry?
that, I'm an actuary by day.
What's an actuary?
An actuary is someone who computes for the probability of your death and determines your value according to these
Wow.
parameters.
Whoa, okay. All right.
I'm not even kidding.
That got heavy real quick. No, just nice. Okay, cool.
Yep.
That'll feed into our topic later actually. I've got a few questions about along those lines. So, nice.
Okay. Finally, you can find me on Patreon, patreon.com/nosfecatu. I'm also a promoter of the hashtag RPGSEA. That
Mhm.
means role playing gamers of Southeast Asia. We started it with a few friends from Singapore and Malaysia, and now we're starting to get people from Indonesia as well as Thailand,
Mhm.
uh, Hong Kong. Sometimes they want to be counted as Southeast Asian, sometimes they don't. So
Mm.
so that's really up to them. Yeah, as long as you identify as Southeast Asian and you play RPGs, we want to hear your experiences. So we're promoting that hashtag RPGSEA.
Ah, nice, nice, nice. All right. Thank you for that, BJ. Let's go on to Eigen. Eigen,
So
you're up.
hello. Yeah, thank you. My name is Igan Ignacio. I am well, let's say my most defining feature at the moment is I am a PhD student. I kind of stumbled into this whole thing by accident. Um, I
Interesting.
start,
What do you
yeah.
mean?
Well, by thing I mean this session zero. Uh,
Ah.
I I I wrote a hack of a set of rules and I tried it out at a small gaming convention here in the South. And one of the staff from Gamers and GMs, they approached me and asked for my details, and then they added me to this thing. So
That's pretty cool.
most of the time, I just run games for myself and a very small group of friends. And yeah, that's actually about it. Um, the kind of games I'm particularly interested in, anything anything that vaguely resembles original edition D&D.
Ah. So
Uh,
like old school.
yeah, that. And apart from that, Shadowrun. Yeah, I kind of really like Shadowrun.
Okay. So cyberpunk and OSR.
Yeah, yeah,
Nice,
that's it.
nice. All right. Thank you, Eigen. Let's go to Paul. Paul is actually a return guest. He joined us. He last joined us when we did Downtime Dudes and Dicecast versus Cancer. So we were
Yeah.
able to raise some funds for Neil Namoro's GoFundMe, to help him fight cancer. And thank you, Paul, for joining us again. Yeah,
Yeah.
please go ahead. Introduce yourself to our audience.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Paul Gabat. Find me on Twitter at DMPaulG. So, what do? I am part of a group called the Greasy Snitches. We're not bad people. We're trying to be good. It's just the name. Greasy Snitches. So we run tabletop RPG events. We do talks. We also do stream with Tabletop Philippines every Sunday 8 p.m. playing Dungeons and Dragons Adventures League. As for me, I write adventures for Dungeons and Dragons Adventures League, community created content. And yeah, that's basically what's keeping me busy right now.
Nice, nice, nice.
Mm.
So yeah, like uh if you're just tuning in now, like Paul and a bunch of other GMs have seen their adventures debut on DM's Guild recently. I'm gonna go ahead and share the link in chat if you guys want to
Yeah.
check that out, and you really should. You really should. So this is the one that Paul wrote, but you can find others. I think under the code CCC-GSP, right?
GSP, yes. Actually, if you
Yeah.
just go to dmsguild.com, scroll
Uh huh.
down to the Adventures League section,
Uh huh.
all the adventures that have like the cross swords, basically the Greasy Stitches logo,
Right.
please
That's
support.
that's you guys.
Yes. All
Okay.
made
Yeah.
here in the Philippines.
Yeah. So please support those of you who enjoy Adventures League and D&D Fifth Edition. And last but not least, we have Jay over here. Jay, kindly
Yeah.
introduce yourself to our guests, to our
Ah,
audience.
Hi, my name is Jay Mata. Most people know me as one of the guys who set up Ludo, Board Game Bar and Cafe. And I guess that's really where the start of the game design came in because I started organizing experiential games like Murder Mystery, Mega Games, and from there I started offering that service to clients. And for Session Zero tomorrow, our first big product, Sky Killers, will be demoed. And well, where can you find me? Well, technically, tomorrow will also be the big debut of the page. So for Shugenja Games, the company we're setting up for that. So, but technically, it's not up yet. But by
Okay.
tomorrow, you should be able to find us there.
Cool, cool, cool. Okay, so yeah, these guys are all gonna be well, all of us are gonna be there tomorrow at Gamers and GM Session Zero. That's in Green Sun in Makati, Chino Rosas Avenue Extension, and without further ado, um, let's get to talking about game design, shall we?
Mhm.
So, I think a lot of people can find it like quite intimidating, like getting into something creative, whether they're even DMing is a big jump for some people. um why don't like how did you guys get started in game design? Like what started your journey on this path? um and maybe what helped prepare you, like what did you take with you, like either as a player or as a DM or as an actuary, that kind of that helped you start designing games or writing adventures or making campaign settings. I'm gonna open up the floor to whoever wants to respond first, and then we'll just go from there. So who would like to go first?
Uh,
I will call a name then.
okay,
I
I know
yeah.
we're
think
all shy.
I know
We
it's
don't want to.
okay.
We don't want to raise our hand.
Well, I'll ease you guys into it.
All right.
We'll start with I think Marek looked like he was about to speak up. So let's start with you,
Okay.
buddy.
All right.
Blake first.
Um, well, game design has been something that I have always wanted to do. When I was much younger, I would design a bunch of different games on different kinds of platforms and primarily board games. I would
Okay.
have video game ideas, but the whole idea of game design was there. It was the idea of being able to
Oh.
immerse a person into a world.
So by
And
platforms, you meant not just RPGs, not just like
yeah,
RPG systems, like board games, RPGs, video
board
games.
games, card games, video games.
Wow.
So when I when I went into when I went into game design, I it was already something I've been wanting to do for a really long time. But when I started DMing like nonstop. Now I have about like 3 sessions a week. But when I started DMing, I have a bunch of I have a bunch of sorry, I'm trying to think. All right, so
Go.
I grew up in theater and doing a lot of improv. And so I combined the idea of improv and game design, and that's kind of where DMing started. When I started, I know a lot of people when they start DMing, they plan a lot. But when
Sorry,
I
they what?
start, they plan a lot, so they
Ah,
would
okay.
go through the different choices that a person could have made.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially if you're new and you don't know about how vast the different choices could actually be, you start to over prepare. But when I started DMing,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately went into the idea of improv. So there's that. So I've been doing theater for a really long time. So I've been using that as a well, sort of, in DMing.
Okay. Cool. I think a lot of DMs would love to have a theater background, given that part of the role is, stepping into a character's, not just one character's role, but like a whole world of different roles. So that's pretty cool that you come from that background.
Yeah. Um, it's it was a really it was a nice coincidence for me that I was able to use my experience there.
Mm-hmm. Cool. All right. Who wants to go next?
I'll go next, I guess.
All
All
right,
right.
go ahead.
Game design. How did I get into it? Uh, I played Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, that's my introduction to tabletop RPG. I
Okay.
played Dungeons and Dragons once in high school, and after that, nothing. I had this frustration. I want to play more, but I can't play with anyone. Nobody plays D&D, at least where I was. And
Same.
then, yeah, I know, right? So, and then fifth edition came out. I was introduced to Adventures League, which is the organized play system of Dungeons and Dragons fifth edition, and started meeting more friends, more people, more games, so many games actually that it's starting to affect my personal life. Now I'm here. But then there's also this thing from Wizards of the Coast, from the Adventures League, that they're letting the community members write adventures as long as they follow certain rules. And there's a lot of people who wrote their adventures, and set their own setting within the specified rule set that was given. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't see any Filipino names, or at least no one that I recognize during that time. So you know what? Let me try to write one. I'm not a writer at all. I'm very bad at grammar. Even my English, if you're listening now, you'll notice a lot of mistakes. But I have zero skills in art for some reason. But then I just want to put what's in my head into paper, or in print, and then put it out there. And with the help of my friends and with a lot of patience, it was actually approved. And then I thought, you know what? There's probably more people like me who wants to do this. So some people actually approach me, other members of the Greasy Snitches also want to write adventures, and we set up more events so we can premiere those adventures. And until now, it's happening. So that's where I'm currently at.
Awesome, awesome. So, like, you started with D&D, and like you said, like, you kind of, you didn't, you started kind of, I don't want to say late, but
Yeah.
yeah, like it's not something from childhood. So you kind of started off as a bit of an, uh, like a young adult, right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
started playing Magic. When I saw people playing Magic when I was in grade school, but cards are so expensive.
Uh huh.
By the time I got into high school, my lunch money got a bit higher, able to save up, buy those crappy cards. It's not as expensive as it is now, but yeah. And then I got into Magic the Gathering, and then all these things that I'm imagining everything that's happening when I play Magic. Before it got competitive, and then yeah, I just want to play with people in terms of um RPGs, not just into games, and like discuss it with people, but nobody wants to talk about it during that time. So,
Mm-hmm.
but now it's different.
Yeah, now it's blown up. It's thanks to, I know, a lot of different things. It's really
Yeah,
a bit of a perfect storm, honestly. I could never have imagined, like, role RPGs are still kind of niche, but then it's a big step up from like when I was in high school, and I didn't know anyone else in high school really who was into this, and part of it is because you couldn't really talk about it out in the open, because
hmm,
it wasn't exactly viewed, like, geek stuff wasn't cool yet back in high school, honestly. um
it's
let
not actually. They will let you. We have to go somewhere, like a empty classroom that we know no one will come in, because if we see, well, the cool kids back then, if they see us playing, they start teasing us, or actually just, there's a lot of things that people, it's not positive during that time,
mm-hmm.
when you start looking at RPGs. But now, everyone's into it, which is great. That means we can spread all the love, all the things that we love to do, and then everybody appreciates it now.
That's so true. That's so true. We have a couple of comments in chat. Let's catch up just like for real quick. So Jeremy on over on Facebook says that it's fun to have theatrical role playing. It's much more immersive and gets you into the story better. Yeah, fully agree. Fully agree. Um, let's go on and check in with. Let's see. I'm gonna cue. How about Eigen? Eigen. Yeah. Like, how did you get started? Designing games.
Yeah, so my first exposure to an RPG, I think, was back in the 80s. I was a kid at the time, and this was sometime around the Satanic Panic surrounding earlier
Oh my
editions of
gosh.
Yeah,
D&D.
yeah.
So as soon as I expressed interest in it, I got shut down by my parents. Actually, they quickly kind of dismissed it. That it's something like, don't go into that. So case closed. By the time I was finally able to, shall we say, explore it fully, it was 2013.
Wow,
So if
that's a
anyone's
big
late
jump.
to the game, that's me. And I got my start with Pathfinder because I was looking for D&D, and this was just before fifth edition came out,
Mm-hmm.
like just a few months before it came out. And so I asked around, and somebody told me, "Oh, we play Pathfinder nowadays." So I looked that up, and that was it. I was addicted, and so I tried to read all of the books, and I quickly started writing my own house rules
Mm-hmm.
because there were things that I couldn't quite wrap my head around. And I knew that I probably should design my own game when the house rules got to 42 pages. So
42
yeah, that's
pages
that's pretty much
Wow.
yeah. At that point, I realized I should
for
write my
Pathfinder.
for
Right. Okay.
Pathfinder.
And then that's when you decided, like, okay, I might as well. Like, I'm making these many rules anyway. Might as well like go the whole 9 yards.
Yeah,
Start designing
exactly,
games.
exactly. Over the past 4 years, my tastes have changed. I went from very simulationist to not simulationist at all. In fact, right now I kind of embrace the rules light ethos more than anything else.
Uh-huh. Right.
But yeah, so I'm pretty happy with where my game design aesthetic is right now.
Okay.
So yeah,
Okay.
that's how it started for me.
All right. We'll round out the our last our last two designers. We'll start with Jay. Jay,
Hmm.
could you tell us, yeah, just like how you got into designing games, and yeah, go ahead.
Well, I got into specifically role playing games back in D&D Second Edition, and it was kind of funny because I had no idea what it was,
Mm-hmm.
and neither did my parents. They gave it to me as a gift, and it was the Dungeon Master's Guide, and only the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Mm-hmm.
So not only did I get interested in it, I had no way of playing it. It took me a while to realize that you needed to buy the player's handbook as well. So the sad part is that was about a year later after getting the Dungeon Master's Guide. Back then there was really very little. But yeah, so I got
So true.
interested with Dungeons and Dragons long before I could even play it, simply because I didn't have the player's handbook.
Uh-huh.
Uh, but after a while, I kind of shifted to board games, which I really ate up board games. And then, I started to entertain the idea of designing board games because I was consuming so much. I was reading up so much. I was researching so much. Uh, that was really big something where I decided I needed to be a game designer. Then from there, since I had Ludo, our my friends and I's board game cafe, we started doing events. So I started having murder mystery games. I started
Right.
designing mega games and other kind of experiential live games. And I realized that I was kind of started enjoying the psychology of it. So somehow it started creeping back to role playing games from there. So and now here I am. So now I'm kind of settling the product now of a role playing game, and the circle is complete. You'd say, and also that my taste kind of reflected that. Um I kind of don't play D&D, not because I don't like the system. It's more of a big part of me now is just looking at at new designers and new way of doing things. So I'm
Uh-huh.
kind of gravitating to. I mean, I hate the term hipster, but there's really no other way to explain it. That I'm starting to gravitate towards more indie RPGs for that very reason.
Well,
So
sometimes like the big titles don't scratch that specific itch. So I totally like I get what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So there,
Yeah.
there you go.
Okay. So yeah, so we're seeing so far like some people like for Eigen and Marek, like it's a natural evolution of their tinkering with game systems. Paul was kind of like a drive to represent, right, like to fill in like a niche that he didn't see, specifically like Filipino authored
Right.
game design. Jay, it's the psychology of games. So like a lot of people bring a lot of different things into from their backgrounds or from their drives into their game design. How about you, BJ? Like I'm particularly curious about being an actuary and how you mentioned like how this kind of relates to how you've been designing games. So yeah, let's hear from you.
Oh, hello everyone. Is my audio okay?
Yeah, yeah, you're coming in. I think relatively clear. Just go ahead.
All right. I guess I have been a geek all my life, so I've been playing Magic the Gathering since I was like what 9 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Back when Mirage was new, so that was a long time ago. I've been playing that for more about 10 years, and then I got to college, and then there's always been something missing for me for Magic the Gathering. I've always enjoyed it, always enjoyed the technical aspect of it, but I was one of the few people at the time who really liked the story side of it. Like I was really into the whole Brothers War and Urza building the legacy,
Mm-hmm.
things of
Well, that
that
was
nature.
awesome.
Yeah,
Or
Jeff Grubb is a
Vorthos.
very good author. So from then on, when in college, we started to have an student orgs specialized in specialized in geek hobbies. And other than Magic the Gathering, there was also Dungeons and Dragons from my org mates. So I started going into that, and there was no looking back. Magic was gone from my life. Um, so I started as a student. We were playing third edition, and since we were in college and we had a lot of time in between our classes, um, we eventually got to really high levels because Dungeons and Dragons, the third edition, doesn't end.
True. There's no end game for
Yeah,
that.
it has a chart up to level 20, but then you buy the epic level handbook,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that doesn't have a cap.
it just
So
stacks and stacks and stacks.
yeah, but the issue with the epic level handbook was that it became super unbalanced because they just they just tossed in a bunch of ideas and then hoped that it would all work out, but it doesn't. So I was a mathematics major, so I was going to, well, it's because the math is all wrong. So I started working with the numbers and then presenting. Okay, this is the epic level that we will play. These are the rules that we will follow. These are the things that we're getting from this module and from that third party module that
Mm-hmm.
we put that together. So we're having a lot of fun with that. And then fourth edition came out. So suddenly all of this work doesn't really make sense anymore. We all migrated to fourth edition. Some of us migrated to Pathfinder, and
Oh
then
man, that split.
that split. Yes,
Yeah.
the Great War.
That's a
But
diplomatic way of saying it.
but when I was doing that, I still had that itch of creating my stuff. And one thing that I noticed was that there weren't stories that were focused on the Filipino experience. So that's why I started writing about our typical fantastical monsters, the tikbalang, the aswang, the Gal, and I transplanted that to fourth edition. And that's when I became familiar with the license of
Ah,
Wizards of the Coast. So that's when I started in 2009.
okay.
But
Wow,
then,
a decade of game design.
yeah, but then D&D Next came out, and suddenly the fourth edition formula, toss it out the window. So you start to see a pattern, right? But this time, I feel like fifth edition is here to stay, and but my tastes have also evolved. Like one of our other guests, I I actually prefer these days to use a simpler system so that when you do introduce some complexity, it's easy to bake it in. So I tend to go towards OSR right now and other things like that. Now, to answer
Right.
your original question, what does my being an actuary have to do about it? Is that there are some game rules that are introduced sometimes. Like when fifth edition introduced advantage, everyone lost their shit.
Okay.
It's like, oh, finally, we don't have the stack modifiers. All you have to do is give advantage.
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And people were arguing like, oh, it's basically like a +5 to your dice roll if you use advantage. And I'm like, not exactly. Because actually it's closer to like plus 3.878 or something like that. I don't know
Uh-huh.
the exact number, but I started doing that those numbers, and that's when I also started to realize that my training as an actuary, which focused on probabilities and looking at long term multiple uncertainties, that does come into play a little bit. Although I
Hmm.
also try to downplay it because it's not like you're going to teach people probability. You're just going to teach them to play a game. If that,
Right.
the best math is the math that isn't visible.
It's all under the surface. Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's all working, it's all working smoothly, and no one questions it because it's working smoothly, then that's a good system for me. So there,
Oh,
here we are, 2019.
interesting. Yeah, so we're all bringing like all of you guys are bringing like something different to the table in terms of like where you're coming from in terms of game design. I guess what I'd like to open up the floor on like in terms of to pose a question to you guys. Like, is there something that people would you would say like need to get started on game design? Whether it's like, you know, a skill like or a background or a motivation, like what do you think would help people get started, like if they were thinking of if they were, you know, where you guys were at before, like what's that skill or that push that they need to, you know, to get out that to get out the door and start designing games, like what would help the most? uh
Um,
Go ahead,
well,
Jay.
the most valuable lesson I've learned from that, and
Mm-hmm.
which was kind of confirmed when I talked to some of my people I really admire, like with Eric Lang, this
Mm-hmm.
esteemed board game designer, came to the Philippines. I was one of the lucky people to talk to him, and he kind of confirmed what I thought. Like, what the biggest lesson I learned was you gotta accept that the first version of your game is going to suck. No, seriously, because that's a lot of people are
Yeah.
afraid of that. But you know, that it will suck, but you gotta accept that. But more than that, he actually had a very interesting way of saying it. He called it the easy 80%, where
Oh.
he said that the first 80% of a game, that's the easy part. creating design, creating the system.
Yeah.
The hardest part is the next 20%, with the part where you go, okay, this get rid of this one doesn't work. You gotta change this part, and then before you know it, you're hacking and cutting your baby, and
Yeah,
then
I agree.
yeah.
I
So
agree.
that's really
I
the most
agree.
painful part of it, because when you start to realize that your brilliant design wasn't that brilliant at all, and then you have to start over, and and you have
Yeah.
to eat a bit of humble pie on that. And to me, I think that's, and I see it honestly when I was playing Ludo, and a lot of board game designers were coming by trying to do their games. That's the one thing I saw that was problematic, was a lot of
Right.
people were defending their game rather than understanding that that is something that you gotta learn to look outside and see. Okay, this sucks. Which goes to the second thing that Eric Lang told me that was very that also stuck to me. And he said,
Mm-hmm.
he told me, how do you know your game is ready for publishing when you're so sick of it? Okay, that you're so sick you don't want to play your own game anymore.
You
That's how
just
you
want to
know it's
stop
ready.
and put it out there.
Not just that. Like the point is, like you don't have any particular enjoyment playing it anymore because you've already looked to every single detail to the point that, okay, I perfected it. Time for other people to enjoy it, but as for me, I'm done with this
I'm
thing.
done.
And I kind of
Interesting.
understand that now. Now that I'm in actually that process of my own game.
I heard some of
Uh,
you voicing your agreement there. Like, care to like weigh in on to add to what Jay said.
No, because
Yeah.
you're like a chef. Like you know a special dish and you can cook it perfectly, but you don't want to eat it.
Yeah.
Umay ka na, in
so
other words. Na umay ka na.
something like that with
Yeah.
games. Like I've we had this edited 100 times. We changed this part so
Uh-huh.
many times already. We played it, play testing with hundreds of people. You know what? I'm tired, but
Yeah.
and then people would say, "Oh, it's so good. Your game's so good. Let's play it again."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no.
Right. So I guess what you're saying is like kind of you gotta persevere, right? And you
Yeah.
gotta like be
Yes.
Yes.
willing. I
Yes.
think in writing, like people often say the phrase like kill your darlings, like be willing to kill your
Yeah.
darlings. I
Yeah.
think it's kind of that's the analogous attitude like
This
for
sounds more
writers.
like selling your darling. Like,
So
I'm tired of you. I'm gonna put you out to market.
yeah, yeah. Anyone else like so yeah we have just like the
Yeah.
first 80% is hard, like persevere in that last
Yeah.
stretch, kill your darlings and design the shit out of it until you're you're too sick of it to even look at it anymore.
I'd
Yeah,
I'd
go ahead.
add to that. I would say that um, you probably should enjoy the process of designing
Yeah.
because you're going to be doing it so many times.
Yeah.
A
You
lot.
need
You're gonna
you
be
need to
iterating
like
a
it.
lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd also add that you should probably also like reading
Oh
because
yeah.
Mm.
just like what Jay said, although his is coming from Eric Lang. I remember watching an interview with Adam Kobel, the creator of Dungeon World. Yeah, Dungeon
Mm-hmm.
World. And he said pretty much the same thing. But with regard specifically to RPGs, he mentioned that whatever idea you had, it's most likely that someone else has thought of it first. And so you might want to read what he or she has written about it so that you don't end up reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
Right, because you don't want
Yeah.
to kind of work on something for months on end and then realize, oh wait, it's a lot like that other game that's already out.
Yeah. And just so we're clear, that has happened to me so many times over the past 4 years.
Same. Same.
Yep. Yes. For
Oh.
me, two things. One is having the drive that you actually want to produce something,
Mm.
and two is being able to or being open to feedback. Basically, being a failure, a funny story, and one of my friends that are here in this room right now will probably laugh. But
Go ahead.
when I started writing this first adventure, A Dragon's Breath, um, I wrote it, but I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. Nobody has heard of this before. This story is gonna be awesome. There's gonna be a lot of gold, gold everywhere. And then we started playtesting it with my friends, closest friends, greasy snitches. That's the
Mm-hmm.
family. And when we playtested it, some of the players were like uh, having joke characters, like for 3 hours just squealing, and then people were just like noticing all the mistakes in my adventure, like you have a golden sword. It says here pure gold. So that means it's not that hard, right? It's gonna bend. I'm like, oh yeah, you have a point. And at first it was okay. I'm accepting feedback, and then as time goes on, like it has been this many years, and like it doesn't make any sense. Like it has come to a point that the adventure looked so crappy. It doesn't make any sense that I've actually stopped writing for like 1 month and like, you know what, I'm not gonna do this anymore. And then
Oh.
for some reason it just opened it again. And but because of that feedback, actually all the changes that I've made, all the things that they told me that doesn't make sense, it doesn't really make any sense. So they were right. It's just, yeah, they were annoying, but they're good friends. So they helped me publish this well, I would say okay adventure now because of them. So yeah, so be open
Mm.
to
Yeah.
that, be open to
Okay,
that.
so be open to feedback and learn to use feedback.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
sometimes it will
Yeah.
be really
I agree.
harsh, but just gonna soak in
Yeah.
whatever you can.
Eventually you're also going to reach that time when you've been designing for a really long time and there are a lot of people who have been giving feedback to your
Uh-huh.
game. You will eventually experience people who give completely opposite feedback,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Right.
This is too much or this is too little. So for example, and what I usually do is I just go back to what I want my game to be, like what I
Yeah.
want it to evoke, right?
Right.
If I want it to evoke this sense of you being a detective and trying to discover these different clues, or I want you to immerse in this world, and so I just want you to experience the lore and the story and how you're going through this world. You go back to that. There
Right.
is this theory in game design called the MDA framework,
Sorry, the what?
where the MDA framework,
MDA framework. Okay, yeah.
yeah, this really cool paper on it. A lot of people have already added on it, and the whole idea is just that there are kind of three components to a game, three layers: the mechanics, the dynamics, and the aesthetics. And the mechanics is just the rules of the game, and the aesthetics is not really just how it looks, but also how it feels, how
Okay.
the user perceives the game, how it makes them feel, the kinds of things that they they associate with the game. So as designers, we look at it through the M, through the mechanics, but we have the A, the aesthetics that we want the user to feel. So we look at it from their perspective, like what am I when I'm the player, what
Right.
do I want to feel from this game, right?
Right.
So yeah, and because of that, because there are different games that have done so many different mechanics, so many different combinations of themes and different even technologies in your game, like dice forge. I just learned about dice forge and it's sweet, and now I'm learning about how to incorporate that into like designing something about that.
What's Dice Forge
Oh,
for our
dice
audience who don't
forge
know yet?
for
Yeah.
people who don't know. So I know this is a tabletop role playing game, a stream, but I'm also a board game designer and I
Yeah.
play
Mm-hmm.
a lot of different board games. So Dice Forge is a board game where you use these modular dice.
Yeah.
They are
I remember that.
six-sided dice that you can remove the faces of. And the whole
Ah.
idea of that you can change the faces was so intriguing to me. And so you want to keep playing different games for the purposes of TRPGs, for example. You want to play different games with different rule sets. There are different RPGs for different kinds of dice. D4 games, D10s, D6s. Uh, and when I learned also about Tadhana, and how they used cards instead of dice. That was something neat too. So you want to keep playing new games and find exciting new combinations with your different themes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the two things that I think of. If you want to be a game designer, you have to think about what your game is, what you want your game to feel like, and you want to keep playing games because the
Right.
first, like what Jay said, the first game, the first thing you think of is probably not going to be the best. So you want to keep iterating until you find that sweet spot, that thing, the different combinations of things that you can come up with that evoke the feeling that you want to.
Okay, so like kind of like having a vision and kind of sticking to it, I
Yeah,
guess, like in a nutshell.
there, like what Paul said, it does happen. The whole idea of getting tired of your game, it really does. So you want to just keep zoning back to what is my game supposed to feel like. Because
Yeah.
if you try to put it in the shoes of someone of the player, someone who hasn't played the game, then it might be fresh. It depends from it. Of course, it differs from person to person, but that's what works with me.
Yep.
Right. Cool. Cool. Cool.
If I might add, I
Yes.
also came from a background of board games, and I do completely agree that if you want, at least from a mechanical standpoint, if you want to get exposed to different ideas, I would say that's one advantage the board game community has over role playing games. I
Right.
mean, not as a knock against role playing games, but there's so many things happening right now in
Oh,
the
I
board
have
game
role
space.
playing games to tell you later.
Fair enough, fair enough. But like you see stuff like using dexterity, as in physical dexterity, to do money transactions. There's the whole part of rolling rights now. Of deck building came from that idea. So just from the sheer exposure of it, I did learn a lot. But yes, I suppose BJ is very correct that I am actually seeing a lot of interesting ideas now in the role playing community, and I'm actually very excited to see where people go with that. Okay.
Speaking of board games and deck building games, actually Jay was the one who kind of helped me get started on game design because when I started doing it, I was actually still in college. I was working on my
Which
thesis
is a
and I
deck
was
builder,
trying to
right?
yeah, that's
Yeah, I
the deck
remember that.
builder,
Yeah, I remember
Alcaldia.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so the whole idea was to make a deck builder that helped teach high school students
Uh
history.
huh.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I showed it to him. He was the one that connected me to the board game club, the Makati board game club. And so a lot of the things that I learned in the early days of game design was from actually from Jay.
Awesome. Awesome. We have a really helpful community. Like I mean, it's always been there, I think, but like that's one of the things that this event has been shining a light on. Well, at least for newcomers especially, it kind of highlights how people are able to band together and like help each other out as like when it comes to putting together events or even creating games. Um, that's really cool. I myself, I'm kind of new to the whole plethora of organizations, events, groups, venues. So it's like it's been really wonderful to discover.
If I
Um,
may add something
mm,
also, since we're talking about Session Zero, I really
yes.
want to give credit to Gamers GMs here because the mere fact that Session Zero even exists, I think pushed a lot of people uh, to actually create something. Because, for example, Sky Killers, the game I have, has actually been around for years, but because life happened, I kept saying stuff like, "Oh, I'll do that tomorrow," or "I'll do that after this project's over," and then you kept procrastinating, and suddenly Rachel, one of the organizers, said, "Oh, Jay, you can do this." Oh, sure, but we're not allowed. We It has to be a certain level of doneness before we'll
Right.
approve the product. Okay, all right. So, and I like to say nowadays that I've done more in the past 3 months with that game than I had in the past 3 years.
That's
All because
exactly what happened.
all because
Here,
Session Zero
here.
set up. If there was no Session Zero, I think you will see a lot more games that were still in the beta testing. But I think the fact that it started pushed people to get it out there, and I think I think I really want to applaud the
Yeah.
organizers of Gamers and GMs for
Yeah.
that.
Kudos
So,
to you
excuse
guys.
me.
Yeah,
Seriously.
that is true because if not for session 0, I will not push for the adventures to get published as early as now. All the
Yeah,
art that's needed to be done. But
yeah.
personally, the event has helped me a lot, and it hasn't happened yet. That's the thing.
I mean,
And it's
I didn't even
already, yeah.
commission art until I didn't even commission art until 2 months ago.
Right?
Yeah,
It lit a fire under
yeah,
everyone's asses, I think.
yeah,
Like our
Yes, it did.
collective asses. To be honest, like I myself, when I first heard about Session Zero, like I heard about it kind of late, but it did kind of get me starting to think like about creating my own game, like a game that I've always wanted to make. But being realistic, like I knew I wasn't gonna get it done in time for tomorrow, so I opted instead to do this, like to help promote it and to be there myself tomorrow and um yeah, like hopefully show you game designers like that, you can get started streaming yourselves like if you really wanted to.
Yeah, but that's
and
a big help though. Like with your
yeah.
question a while ago, like what are the skills needed for game design or creating a game? And I said you just need the drive to produce something and be open to feedback. But if you don't have the skills, there are people who can help you with that. Like I
so
said,
true.
I don't know how to draw, but I have a friend or I know someone, I got connected to someone that can draw really well, that can make a big impact on what I'm doing. I
Right.
don't know how to like do storytelling, how to write it, but there are people around me that can edit, that can help me, that can play test with me, and those like that group of skill set from other people, you combining all of it and then producing this, that makes a game. You helping out with Dicecast, helping out with the stream, all the things that we're talking right now could help someone who
Right.
needs designing a game. So that's good. Everyone's doing their part and everyone's being great at it.
It takes a village to raise a game.
Yes, there we go.
And that actually also ties into my own advice
Yes. Go ahead, BJ.
for getting into the creation of RPGs is that for me the most important thing is that you talk about your idea. You you have the heart to tell your big thing, even if it sucks. Like Jay said, your first game will probably suck, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that you're not going to make your first game.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
You're going to have to go through that, but it's not go even if it mechanically sucks. The idea of you having heart in creating it, talking about hey this new game, I'm so excited about it, and you post on social media, that already does a lot of things. And also I guess connected to that, you talk to your idols. Most of them are really very approachable on social media. So if you have a game that you really like, if you're if you're really a big fan of Matt Mercer, you then go talk to him, even if he doesn't reply. Go go approach him. Sometimes he will reply. That's really the biggest thing for me. Um, Help create a community and talk to people, build relationships, and I think that's how you get started. And on that note, because unlike Jay, for example, I'm not really into board games,
Mm-hmm.
so I'm really more on the RPG side of things. One of the interesting about RPGs that can affect your game design is that it's not necessarily bound to the laws of physics. And by
Oh
physics,
yeah.
I don't mean the jumping speed of your character who has 16 strength.
Rule of
That's
cool.
not what I meant. What I meant rather is that the physical product as an RPG, you just need to
Ah.
portray your product, the idea of the product, and a lot of the times the constraints of creation do not quite apply to RPGs. Even if you don't have the capital to actually have a book produced, as long as you have an idea, you can write it. You can eventually put it out there, even if it's just a blog
Mm-hmm.
that talks about this cool adventure that you thought up, and then you just wrote about it. That's already a good start. That's already your first game.
I
I
think a
think
lot of games started that way, right?
Yeah.
right,
As
right,
a
right.
blog.
So yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we had like it looks like crap on the stream because like you see all the different chats with the same messages, but if you're tuning in on one stream like on Facebook, on Twitch, you'll see a bunch of like we have a whole lot of game design tips from our game designers. Just to run through the list that I was putting out like while they were discussing their advice, their experiences. Like the first 80% is easy, the last 20% is the hardest. Enjoy the process. Read a lot. Be open to feedback. It's very useful. Have a vision for your game and like the experience it evokes. Play games. All the games. Um, Meet other game designers, get engaged in the community. They will help you out, and put your ideas out there, whether it's like contacting your idols, making a blog about it, or tweeting your process on social media, on Twitter, or posting about it on Facebook. Like it does stuff, it gets the ball rolling. So that was wow for our first question. That's like a lot of productivity already. Thank you
Yeah.
guys so much.
So much meat.
Mark taking notes. People will pay for those advice. Getting it
we'll
here in the comment section.
we'll see if you can make a book about it later on. All
Oh
right.
yeah,
So
Mark.
yes,
I do have
please
just one last thing.
go ahead.
Even if your first game sucks, that's what second edition is for.
Yes. True. Yep. Yep.
And yeah, that's so true. Like I think these days also, speaking of editions, like you see a lot of RPGs, like especially indie RPGs out there, that they don't even come out with a second edition. It's like an update, right? Because digitally, you just you just get the latest PDF, and
Mhm.
that's that,
Yeah.
And
right? There's nothing
well,
stopping you
I
from
don't
iterating.
know. I distinctly remember the people at Pathfinder promising people that they will not come up with a second edition, and they went ahead and did.
And they
That's a
did,
good
yeah,
point.
yeah.
Yeah,
I wonder how that's gonna
Which was
go.
pretty good actually.
yeah.
Just not to get too off topic, but the irony there is like the people who made Pathfinder, they didn't like the change of 3.5 to
Oh
fourth
yeah.
ed. So the fact that there's a new edition coming out and like based on reports, like they've changed quite, like Action Economy is
And we're
essentially
back on the
fourth
World War,
edition.
guys. We're back on the
All
World
right. We can talk about this for
It's gonna
hours.
go, yeah. So let's nip it in the bud. I'm sorry I brought it up. Let's go on. I want to prompt you know the next question. So we've talked
All
about
right.
starting in game design, like what can help you get started in game design. But what about the not the end product, but like even in the process, what are the rewarding things for you guys, like when it comes to game design? Like what keeps you going? What itch does it scratch? What's the most fun thing for you guys about being able to design games? I'll open the floor up again to whoever wants to go first. Yeah, so who'd
I
like a
think
stab at it?
for a change of pace, I will go first instead of last.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. For me, the fulfilling part is the storytelling experience of because like I've said before, I am an actuary by day, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm good at my job. But at the end of it, I don't really, I can't really say that I love my job because I am not. What's the word? Um, I won't go about boring you with actuarial details all the time, right? I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to um, I'm not going to tell you how much pension you're entitled to if you're a smoker, for example, or things of that nature.
Uh-huh.
But at the end of it all, when I'm doing RPGs, whether as a GM, as a player, as a writer, as a designer, they for me they all scratch the same itch. It's all about being part of a story or telling a story that is uh, a very unique medium because it's interactive.
Yeah.
Like people were talking about episode of Black Mirror some time back where there are choices, right?
Right, right,
Like
right. Like the choose
that,
your own adventure one. Yeah.
yeah, and people were saying it's revolutionary. So that's basic Dungeons and Dragons.
That's
That's what it is. So yeah, I like the story part of it, and I like telling stories, and I like it when people take my stories and then turn it into a entirely different thing, which is what you get when you are a designer. You put your product out there, and then they use it for a completely different um, use case than you were expecting. You're pleasantly
Yeah.
surprised.
okay. Yeah, so it's like it kind of um uh it kind of taps into like it's so funny that people aren't even the way they engage with something like you said like Black Mirror, right, it kind of like being able to play a game like this really taps into something that everyone can relate to even though they aren't aware of that. And like you say, like whether you're a player, a DM, or a game designer, like it does kind of feed back into that. It's all like a loop, that same enjoyment. Yeah, who wants to, let's see, let me just see if I can get Eigen's video back. Yeah, Grid Fam did cut out for a bit there, but we have almost everyone back. So let's check in. Who wants to go next?
For me,
Okay.
I think why I'm doing this is probably just what leaving a legacy or of sorts. Like, because if you ask now, like, who is Paul Gabat? Like, who, like, you ask yourself, what are we doing here? And then, like, but if I can leave something, that what have I contributed to humanity, then this is it. That's the best I can do. So I have stories to tell. I want to show it to everybody, and yeah, and hopefully people will appreciate those things that I'm leaving behind. So my kids, my grandkids, I'm assuming it's gonna be like those like famous authors. Like when you die, that's when everything becomes famous. So, like all the things that you created, all of a sudden will skyrocket. It will have a series, a movie, and so on and so forth. But you're dead. But but if
We're
that
all
happened,
Van Goghs waiting to happen.
yeah, actually,
Okay, so it's a question of legacy. And I think that like that kind of relates really well to the reason you even started designing games. It's to give Filipino representation on a place like DM's Guild in the D&D community.
yeah.
So it's not just your legacy. It's like really um it's for all the Filipino gamers out there. Like you can kind of point at that and hey, we're on the map.
hmm Yeah, because I'm pretty sure, like 100%, I'm not the best one out there. There's someone better than me in terms of writing, game design, and every other aspect of making games. And if that someone is actually here in the Philippines or locally, and it's not getting exposed or doesn't know the channels of where to actually submit or give out their ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and if I can help out, give that little push to make that person get the what he deserves and that exposure that he needs, I'm all for it. I'll be the guy at the side helping. I'm the kingmaker. Let's put it like that. I'm
Okay,
happy with that.
awesome. How about the rest of you guys?
Well, for me, the thing, es- especially for tabletop role playing games, what really kept me is the whole idea of being able to flex the theater muscles. I know I've mentioned it before, but when I started doing game design, see, I graduated with management information systems, basically IT and graphic design. So I really wanted to enter game design, and then I kind of got the majors. I studied the majors for that, and when I graduated, it was all about either doing IT, doing design work, or doing game design work. And I didn't really have time to do the theater, which I had the passion for. And so when I started DMing every first it started with every other week, then every week, and then now I have like 3 games a week now. I it was able to scratch that itch that I'm able to perform, even if it's for like a small group. You know, I'm able to perform this basically the story that I've been crafting, and it started with that, and then eventually it just cascaded into me creating this entire world that kind of came out of nowhere, and the players started putting in their own input. I think that's also one of the things that I love about D&D or tabletop role playing games in general. It's that the story is not just your own.
It's
It's a
collaborative.
combination.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a collaboration with everybody, and everybody puts in their own spin on it. Everybody puts in their own like signature, and so it actually feels real because it's not just you trying to create this world. It's everybody putting in their own experiences, and yeah, that's basically it. That's really the drive. It started there with the idea of performing for a group of people, for a small group of people, that
Uh huh.
it eventually grew into I want to be able now to create this world. I've seen this world now in my head. I want to write it down now. So
Man, I can kind of relate to that. Like, and it's like an angle I didn't consider before because I always, as a DM or a GM, you kind of think, no adventure, no plan, no module survives first contact with the players like 100% intact. But then I guess also as a game designer, right? Like you're putting your game in the hands of someone else, and like if there anything like, well, a bunch of us, like they're gonna tinker with it, they're gonna come up with house rules, they're gonna play it in ways you don't anticipate. So there's still that aspect, yeah, of like that kind of collaboration. Like you never know what's gonna happen, like where they're gonna take your game. Yeah, that's true. That's a
yeah,
really
I've
good point.
actually learned that because now people use improv as the fallback. They plan and then they use improv as the fallback. Now I've learned to use improv primarily, and then if I happen to plan something that lines up with the choices that the player makes, that's my fallback. Like I just use the whole improv primarily because it just flows better with the story. You don't want to have that experience, especially like I know in board games you go back to the rule book a lot, but
Right.
when you're playing a tabletop role playing game and it's a story and everybody's already engaged, and then out of nowhere you have to go check the rule book,
Yeah,
that takes you out of the experience.
it snaps everyone
So
out. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the thing I enjoy about making games and running games is the whole weaving the story aspect. And so, as much as possible, I don't want to interrupt that flow.
Nice. Nice. All right. Yeah. Anyone else care to weigh in? Like, yeah, what oh, I have to update the topic. My gosh. Yeah, but like what is rewarding in game design, in designing games for you guys?
Well, just to add about what everyone's been saying, it's also again I like the psychology of game theory and how games go, but to add to that, a nice part about RPGs, you're right, it's very collaborative. It's very enjoyable to watch players uh, add to the story, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But I think one of the things I like that I kind of sort of carried over from board game design and experiential game design is the idea that if you design your game well enough, you will actually, for lack of a better word, you start to also manipulate the players to do what you want, kind of thing. Like if you
Okay,
make
yeah,
this
kind of.
if you make this aspect fun enough, if you make this aspect interesting enough, even though they have agency, even though they'll create stuff, they're going to think, oh, this is interesting what the GM is making us do. I want to see what he has in store for me, and he follows the breadcrumbs, so to speak, that you play. So in a way, what I like about game design, particularly in the RPG space, is it's a game for the GM as well. His particular game is, can I make my story interesting enough that when I place breadcrumbs, they're not going to kick it, they're not going to step on it, they're actually going to, follow it. And if they don't, what can I do to to how do I say this? What can I do to make that aspect of it more interesting? That they will cooperate or not cooperate, trust me, rather than railroading or without having to force them to follow certain things. So that byplay between the storyteller and the player is something I'm very interested in.
All right. All right. That is thank you for that, Jay.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of play that fine line, right? That all not
Yeah.
just GMs but also I guess designers kind of have to walk, and yeah, how that plays. Interesting that yeah, the psychology of games is what interests you. That's what I wanted to ask more about actually from before. So like um it kind of feeds in like the experience you want your players to go through, right? Like what do you want
Yeah.
to evoke from them, and like as a game designer, like since that's like the most rewarding part for you, like how do you know when they're getting it, so to speak?
Mm. For me, specifically in RPGs,
Yeah.
I know they get it when they're following your script without you doing anything. And when I
Ah.
say a script, like okay, I want at the very barest level. Okay, I have a boss here. Are they fighting the boss the way I'm hoping them to do? And it again, I know a lot of people complain about railroading or lack of agency,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the best modules are the kind of modules where and I think this is actually something Adventures League is very good at, where they create a story so interesting that it doesn't feel like you're being railroaded because it makes it fun. It makes it interesting that okay, that stairs or that treasure chest, you want the players to open it because something's going to happen, and they're going to open it not because they're being forced to, but because the kind of setup, the kind of feelings, the kind of emotions you evoke are so strong that they trust the GM, they trust the module to follow. And
Right.
Yeah, I
it to
agree.
me that the tweaking is something I found interesting. I mean, I guess if I'm going to give an example right now,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just look at the evolution of level drain in Dungeons and Dragons. That's that's widely regarded to be one of the mistakes of the original Dungeons and Dragons. You know, when ghosts and other undead will just
Right.
drain your levels, and nobody liked that. It is not. It's you worked so hard to level up your character, and then this is one monster with one strike. Just gets rid of it.
Right.
And the fact, and you could really see it on through the additions. The mindset of the game designers in TSR or Wizards of the Coast. When okay, they ruled that part, but it got to 3.5 instead. It just temporarily drained stats, and like I'm drawing a blank what it does now, but it definitely doesn't drain experience because from a psychological standpoint, that's not fun,
That's not.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not. I mean, I in the beginning they did that because they wanted you to be afraid of the undead, but there are ways to make players uh, fear the unknown, and to feel genuine fear and horror without having to resort to them feeling like they just got screwed over by the system.
Mm-hmm.
Call of Cthulhu does a good job of that, for example, with their sanity system. But it this is what I mean by the psychology of the game. And I think a lot of game designers have to learn that just because the mechanic sounds interesting and it works, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a good idea. That you
Right.
look at it and what exactly do you want them to feel when that happens? And well, I mean, just look at video games. Nobody likes it when their character gets nerfed or when
True.
their favorite main gets nerfed. And that this is one of the reasons why the best games they try their best not to nerf because it's such a bad feeling. So same thing with role playing games. When designing, when I say psychology, what I mean is when you design, it's not just whether it's balanced, not just whether it works, but whether if I do this, how will the players feel? And I think to me that was my light bulb moment when I learned that because before then I hated I was so afraid of game design because everything I heard from people was math, which by the way is also very important,
Yeah.
but there's also the second part of it, which is the psychology of it. and that part, I mean, I'm enjoyable. Yeah, I enjoy the psychology part so much that I'm tolerating the math part of it, which I don't
It's
like.
worth it.
Yeah, it makes it worth it to learn that part.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Anyone else care to weigh in, like, or to add
Yeah.
to what Jay
Well,
said?
um, the thing that Jay said about how you want to portray certain things is also very important with like how mechanics are worded, because one of the things that I really like to bring up now whenever I'm talking about game design is this the experience that happened with World of Warcraft when it was first being tested, when it was first being shown around. World of Warcraft has this sleep system, right? Rest
Mm-hmm.
experience, right? So
Mm-hmm.
back then, what happened was if characters would rest, they would have normal XP experience gain, but if they didn't have rest, they would have a penalty, and people hated it. People hated the fact that they'd get a penalty when they didn't have rest. Now, after the iteration that Blizzard did, they didn't change how the thing worked at all. Like they didn't change how rest experience worked at all. Instead, they changed the wording.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you rested, you have bonus experience, and it
Yes,
goes
that's
back to
exactly
normal.
it.
It goes
That's
back to
exactly.
normal after, yeah. So that's one of the things that you have to keep in mind. Like, yeah, sure, it works, but what is your player experiencing?
Right.
And maybe you can change it in a certain way so that while the mechanics itself doesn't change, the experience changes.
Yeah,
Right.
that's exactly what I mean by
And
psychology. That's the part that I really like.
tweaking those dials, like, is for what for you guys, like, it's one of the more rewarding parts of game design.
Mm.
Nice. Okay. We actually have an interesting question in the chat. Jukes, who is one of our more regular audience members, Jukes is asking, how do you guys feel about, like, games that kind of don't empower the player, right? Like the games like Cthulhu, or games like, I'm failing to think of any other games, but Cthulhu is a really good example. Like, you're not really empowered. Like, you're always a bit, on the edge of your seat, whether you're gonna kick the bucket then and there. Like, where does, like, how does that fit in to what you're saying about, like, a rewarding experience for the players?
Um, okay, well, let me talk about Call of Cthulhu first, okay? Because
Okay.
it's very funny that you mentioned Call of Cthulhu, because if you read the literature, which I'm sure everybody here has, that the whole theme of Call of Cthulhu is really about the horror of hopelessness. It's not
Yeah.
horror in terms of blood and gore or fangs and tentacles. It's really the idea that it doesn't matter how heroic you are, it's all for nothing.
Yeah.
And I would argue that from a psychology, from an emotional standpoint, Call of Cthulhu is doing exactly that.
Right. It's
Right?
enforcing it.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
reinforcing that idea that it's you. I forgot who told me it, but essentially the heroism in Call of Cthulhu is not that you save the world.
It's
It's that
Pyrrhic.
you delayed something, or it's all the small things like you failed to stop the end of the world, but you rescued your wife, and you got to embrace her one last time before the world ends. And that's a brilliant way to put it. So,
Right.
in terms of empowerment, yes, I do believe that empowerment is important. What you do in a system where it doesn't seem to follow that is that, again, this is where background literature might help, where you shift the focus rather. Okay, if the system or the game won't let you save the world,
Uh huh.
maybe it'll let you save your girlfriend,
Right.
maybe it'll let you save your soul, so to speak. And this is where I think this is where the GM comes
Right.
in terms of how the story is supposed to be. If you want to stick to a system's ideas on that, and also the mechanics of it, going back to Cthulhu, this is why, for me, even though it's very mundane, the sanity system worked quite well, because if despite the fact that you're facing elder gods and everything, that the mere presence of the sanity system gives you some sort of reward. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I'm still sane, I'm still
Yeah.
alive, I'm
Even though
still.
I've slipped a bit, yeah, I'm still
Yeah,
there.
so yeah,
Still
yeah,
me.
sure. The Azaton is still gonna wake up, but at least I'm still alive to do something. I'm still have my sanity. So it gives you a little bit of hope in that
Right.
regard. For That's what I feel about empowerment. That the idea
Right.
is you don't have to. Empowerment comes in many ways. If you look at movies, they actually do this quite a lot, where it doesn't necessarily mean save the world. It could mean, like I said,
Yeah.
save your girlfriend, save your
A more
soul,
personal, smaller
more,
scale
more for small
win. Yeah.
scales. Yeah, and that can make a player feel empowered.
Right. So like yeah, it's not always black and white. Like empowerment and positive experience isn't black and white where you're always gonna save the day or always gonna
Yeah,
accomplish your goals. It's actually there's a lot of gray,
yeah,
and it's really about like pushing that experience that's expected forward. Because entering a
And
Cthulhu
people
game,
people
yeah,
actually want that. They
right,
want to feel scared. It's a preference. So if
right,
you're playing
yeah,
this
yeah,
game, I want to feel scared. I'm expecting that I will die, but how long can I last? People
yeah,
yeah,
people actually come up to me. Those who play Call of Cthulhu like have lands like talking about like, you know what? There's this octopus alien thingy going inside my mouth, but then I survived. I didn't die. And they're talking about all these crazy things that are happening to them, and they love it. That's the thrill. They want to experience
yeah,
like apocalyptic level event, or but not in real life, of course. So how
yeah.
how else can I do it? So they do it
right,
in game, and they enjoy it. So it's a matter of preference, really.
But
yeah. So
that's the important thing about it.
yes,
Mhm.
You need to have the player, like, you have to provide that as a GM. You can't just throw, not have a conversation with them that is, this is a
Right.
horror game. This is
right,
what's going to happen. This is what we are expecting. If you
right,
just if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons and they're level 16 and you throw horror elements that they cannot beat at them, it's bad GMing. And if you do that as a game designer, it's bad design.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
You have to be upfront about it.
It's something that you establish from the very start.
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
If
So
if I
if you
may
don't
add
do
one,
that,
okay, yeah, sorry, BJ, go
Go
ahead.
ahead, BJ. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
let you finish.
because that's one of those things that is easy to fall into. Is like World of Darkness. It's a horror game, but not everyone came into Darkness with the idea it's a horror game. Some of them wanted to be vampires in the cool way because Brad Pitt looked nice. So, so you have to, and you can play World of Darkness in that way, where it's all about getting the good looking vampire person to notice you,
Right,
where you also a good looking vampire person, and that's fine. But make sure that that's not what the players are expecting if you're going to throw a horror game at.
right,
yeah,
right.
it's set up.
So
Also,
yeah, go ahead, Jay. You wanted to weigh
if I
in.
might add one more thing regarding to player expectation about agency and empowerment. If you don't mind, I'll give a video game example because it just suddenly came to me a lecture of game design I learned. If you go, for example, look at the game like Mario, Super Mario Brothers. If you really think about it, you don't really have a lot of choice there. The game forces you to move from left to right, and you're not even allowed to go backwards. Right, the screen stops. And
Right.
yet, the fact that there's a point system, the fact that there's flags at the end, the fact that you have a live status system, all these are all subtle psychological points that give you choice and gives you empowerment. Technically, yeah, but but even though it's not empowering in the sense that, oh, I'm doing exactly what the designers want me to do, which is to move left to right, and oh, I'm required to go here.
Mm-hmm.
But people have fun anyway,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess that's also the case in terms of pretty much any game you play. I mean, chess, if you think about it, it's a very restrictive game.
Well,
But
True.
but, the, but there
in
are
games,
some sorry,
yeah,
but there are some differences with when you're doing it with RPGs because
true.
RPGs have some are, wiggle room compared to a lot of games wherein you're tightly defined towards a certain goal. In
Yeah, that's true.
RPGs, there's a selling point of you can do anything, but the fact is depends on the game. If you're playing this game, then this is what you should expect. But you should still be upfront with that because people will come in thinking that they can do anything.
Yeah.
So really, I
So
think it's communication.
Yeah, but
definitely so.
but the thing there is, in terms of game design, so are we supposed
Right.
to put it there, like in the games that we're making, that hey, as the GM, if you're running a tabletop RPG, you should be setting expectation or a session zero basically,
Haha.
or since it's
Hashtag plugs.
Hashtag.
hashtag, yeah, session zero,
Product
or
placement.
or since as BJ said, that it depends on the team. If it's a World of Darkness, there'll be vampire, there'll be probably be R16 or R18 stuff. Call of Cthulhu, there'll be like aliens and everything. um the expectation there is it's gonna be horror, it's gonna be fantasy, it's gonna be comedy. But in when we design our games, do we put that disclaimer there to have that, or is that more of a culture or thing of setting expectation in the community?
Yeah.
I'd like to say something
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
go.
Aigan.
about that. So, with regards to players feeling empowered, so back when I was still running 5e games, I found that I was attracting a lot of players who had certain expectations about what they could do, what they'd be allowed to do, so on and so forth. And again, I'm just speaking from my own experience here, so your results may vary. But I found that the players in my groups were using this empowerment to do terrible things in the game. So I find that in response to the comment, how do you guys feel about deadly games like that? I found that by making the game lethal to favorite characters, so to speak, it helped me enjoy the game because players weren't doing horrible things.
I think it also gives the players kind of purpose because
Right.
when in your experience, has it happened to me too, when they're given the log line, you can do anything. There's
Yeah.
immediately that
Yeah.
whole instinct of, oh, you know what, let's just murder Obo.
Yeah.
Let's just
Mm-mm.
kill
Yeah.
this guy. Let's just get what we want, because there isn't any consequence. But if you give purpose, right? If you give purpose,
Yeah.
like you said, the whole idea of being able to making sure, if the game was lethal, then the characters now have purpose.
Yeah. If I may
Which is to survive.
if I might add a bit of shameless plugging here,
Go ahead.
uh, one
There's
of
no
my
shameless things here on
uh,
Dice.
one of my because it ties to the topic. One of my design agendas when I was creating Sky Killers was I wanted to get rid of the experience point system because in my mindset that the problem I had with the experience point is leveling up is like I said, that is already a psychological drive for people to do something. I gotta
Mhm.
kill the dragon because that gives me XP. Talking down the dragon or doing some sort of role play thing doesn't give me as much XP, or at least not obviously. So when I was creating the advancement system for the game Sky Killers, was I decided to make it qualitative rather than quantitative, where it tells a certain story arc. Okay, for example, is your character an edge lord who's seeking revenge? Okay, you level up when you get your revenge, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
that
I kind
sounds
of wanted to tie it away from a number system for that very reason.
So like milestones, like story milestones. That's what you
Exactly.
were
Yeah.
going for.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, nice. Wow,
Mhm.
we've we've covered a lot of ground on this question. Before we go, and it's something I want to explore really because it ties into a couple of the stuff I wanted to bring up on stream. But yeah, before that, does anyone else wanna just the last stuff on what you find rewarding about designing games before we venture into this?
Um. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yes.
I love it. I love the process. I love creating something like BJ said. I love it when it becomes physical. But I also love it when when players break the system. Or okay, that's a
Hmm.
negative way to look at it. But I love it when characters. I love it when players take your system and show you that they're smarter than you are because I didn't know you could do that
that's
with your
the
character.
that's the way
Right?
to do it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know you that was possible, and I like that, especially when I started creating murder before when I was making murder mystery games and the like. I loved it when I would pepper the room with clues. This is supposed to lead you to the murderer, and then I find 2/3 of the time, it always happens. The players figure it out another way,
Then
and
you
it's like,
expect, yeah.
yeah, it's like, and I love that. And then obviously the second iteration will have that, and there's a certain level of I guess hubris in the sense that you created a system which allowed people to shine.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I love that part about RPGs more than board games or any other kind of game. That I think RPGs are very unique in that aspect. It's the one of all of the kinds of games. This one allows players to, in a way, outsmart the game designer, and
Yeah,
that's what I enjoy about RPGs.
yeah, as much as you want to plan for different things, right? And you
Hello.
want to say, as much as you want to plan for like combat, for example, I have
Mm-hmm.
so many experiences of my party just ending up not fighting because they ended up figuring out in another way.
Right. Like different solutions, emerged through, yeah, through the players, a different experience. Um, yeah. Ooh. Uh, okay, hang on. So yeah, for I guess, yeah, let's move into like my next question really, because it's kind of been pinging around in our discussion. Might as well put it up on the docket officially. So like, yeah, what are you exploring? Like a lot of you have mentioned, exploring alternate rule sets, exploring like different ways for different experiences that you want players to have. Like, what are you, in the games that you're presenting, or even the ones that you aren't, like what do you think is worth exploring as game designers in terms of game design? So we've talked about different ways of empower but not empowering, different ways of um uh giving players that positive experience, right? Different ways of giving them that that ping, that kind of Pavlovian ping that makes them feel like, oh, we're having fun playing this game. Yeah, like yeah, who wants to step in and explain like what you're exploring? It could be like some of your writing adventures. What kind of narratives are you exploring? For those who are piqued by mechanics, like what kind
All right.
of, yeah, mechanics are you enjoying designing?
All right. For me, it's not more on the mechanics, but more
Mm-hmm.
on storytelling. The adventures that I write are for Dungeons and Dragons. It's the basic, the evergreen fantasy game that you will have. But when I write my adventures, my goal is to uh, for my players to be able to how do you say this, like extract like a certain emotion. For example, when you watch a movie, you watch a horror movie, you want to get scared. You
Right.
watch a telenovela, you will cry and cry. You watch Cardo Dalisay for like 3 years, 4 years, you get annoyed, things like that. There's this um, feelings that you want, what you want to come out from the players, and that when I write my adventures, that's my goal. Like, how can I make my players cry, for example? What can I do?
Mm.
What mechanics will work uh, to reach this particular goal? Like, how will I weave the story, mechanics, and combat exploration, and will have that end goal? If I want them to be happy, I want them to feel like they have achieved something, like they're really heroes. What set of tools do I need to use and then weave it in the story so that that can actually happen? So that is my goal when I write adventures. I want them to feel something. When I wrote A Dragon's Breath, um, it's a sad adventure. Basically, it's really I don't know why I wrote it, but it's sad. But when I was running it in our event with these players, cover your ears a bit. Well, not really spoiler, but um, at the end, as I was reading the end part or narrating the end part, I'm getting teary eyed, and I'm like, Paul, don't blink because that tear will fall, and like you will look stupid in front of the players. And then I look at the players, and I was narrating the end part of my adventure, and they're all the same. Like their eyes are bawling, some are even crying already. And at that point, I realized that, yep, I achieved the goal of that particular adventure. And like how can I extract a different emotion on my next adventure? And that's where it starts now.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So yeah, go ahead,
And
Marek.
I really enjoy kind of that whole aspect of of creating these TRPG stories, and it always goes back to this moment that there's a really well known show, Critical Role. People would have heard of it, and
Hmm.
the second to
Really?
the last the second to the last episode of their first campaign, when I saw that, for those who don't know, it's fine. I'd rather you watch it yourself. So don't. I'm not gonna spoil anything. But there was this moment where a player was about to give something up that the other players didn't really understand what it was they're giving up. But when he finally gave it up and everyone understood what was happening, there was this connection that everybody had, and they realized the sacrifice. And that's kind of what I want to build. I think that's also one of the things that I want to try to build when I'm kind of starting the story, because when you're starting a story, everybody is just new, your characters are new, you're just trying to figure out what you want to do. But
Right.
later on in the campaign, then you start with your relationships and your different connections with each other, and
Mm-hmm.
it's on those threads that you want to pull on, because really um, this whole idea of immersing yourself, it's when you also get to feel the emotions yourself that you realize, oh, I am a part of this adventure. And I think that one of the things I like about TRPGs is when you're talking about what your character did, like, you play a game now, tomorrow you're gonna talk about it. You don't say, "Hey, remember what Scanlan did? Remember what Venser did?" You don't say that. You say, "Remember what you did, and I
Right.
helped save you," and it's all personal. And it's that kind of thing that intrigues me the most. And while I'm also creating these stories, I want to be able to kind of create a world where these stories can exist, which is how how yours started. It was the whole idea of making a world rich enough so that the players don't recognize the mistakes. You know what I mean?
The
Like, it's
mistakes.
not it's not it's not something new. It's not a new world that I
Ah,
have to just come up on the fly.
right. You're not
Everything is
reinventing the
fluid.
wheel. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Everything is fluid, so you don't have to think about what the town's name is. You won't have to think about what happened a few years ago. Everything's already laid out, so everything is fluid when you're creating your story. That's kind
Okay.
of in addition to what Paul said. It's also kind of what I am after naman, which is the whole idea of having this rich world where players can go through the story uninterrupted.
Okay. Okay. So I wanna jump in here and kind of ask, drill down a bit on specifics, because both you, for you, Marek, you're making a campaign setting essentially, um, and Paul, we're talking about the adventures you wrote. Like, what, how do you kind of ensure that the players get those experiences? Like for Paul, it's being able to get that emotional moment at the end. Like, how do you make sure when you're designing that adventure that the players, are gonna connect the dots and like feel that at the end, as if on cue. Um, or are you never sure? Like, is it always a gamble, even like when you're designing? Oh, there you
I'm
go.
on mute. Yeah, all right. You can never be sure, but
Yeah.
um, I I don't want to say steal, but I use a lot of reference in terms of how I want to achieve a certain goal in my adventure. So I watch a lot. I'm a nerd, so I watch a lot of animes. So you know,
Mm-hmm.
when that guy who wants to be a hero, he wants to be the strongest, or you watch a lot of series where you will just cry every episode. I I try to take like parts of it, scenes from it that I know players will recognize. Like if this happened,
Ah,
you know it's gonna be hard to keep that emotions inside. You have to let it go, and then you add another scene that will make a person really sad.
uh-huh.
You just keep pushing out these emotions, so one scene after the other, and then you add a
Right.
certain mechanics in game that will just let it all out, and then at that point, hopefully, they will feel the emotion that you want to convey in that adventure.
So it's you're drawing from pop culture, like from
Yeah,
pop culture examples, and like hoping that resonates, and kind of it's kind of like foreshadowing, right? Like they get it, like when that thing you planted in the adventure happens, and like it there's that trigger, at least even if it's just in the back of their heads, and that's what they
right.
resonate with.
Yeah,
Okay.
because tabletop RPGs is just using your imagination.
Right.
So if you're telling a story and they cannot put it in their head, it's not rendering,
Uh-huh.
it's just blank, then you're not gonna be able to get your message across. But if you put out a reference that everyone will get, like when you say that like a strong opponent comes in, and then this looks like Taguro 100%, you laugh because you have that idea in your head,
Yeah.
you see it.
Yeah, it's there.
As- and when you say that, people either laugh or get scared, and that's what I use basically. So I write
Okay.
those things in my adventure, and then hopefully they get what I want them to feel.
Right. Okay. Uh, I mean, Marek, you mentioned about like not having to reinvent the wheel. Like, I guess like that kind of taps into the same thing. Um, or am I wrong? Like, are you able to
Well,
kind of use that same? Go ahead.
for me, I think I because I also do the same thing as Paul mentioned, which is drawing from pop culture. Especially, it helps when you're kind of backed into a corner and you need to come up with something on the fly, right?
Right. Oh,
It
cause
it
it's
really
improv. Yeah.
yeah, it really does help because that's really that's my preferred way, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I have tried writing different adventures, but what I realized is what's important, at least for me, what has become important for me is the stories that the players write and not the stories that I write.
Mm-hmm.
So I can give them a prompt, and it's just the unfolding of their of how they're going to react to this to the prompt. For me, that prompt includes not just like um, the whole general campaign prompt. For example, the first one I think that I can think of that's was set on your mismo on Kalin, which is one of the countries in your is there is this group of people who are spreading the word that all of the gods are just one person, that they're all just one person, they're all aspects of one person,
Mm-hmm.
and that that whole idea, that everybody they grabbed onto that and they started adding on to that and reacting to this cult that is trying to say that this religion and this religion is the same thing. So but I can't, what if I take that prompt and put it onto a different group, it would be, I would feel like it would be a completely different story. How they would attack the problem would be completely different.
Right.
And so when I give the prompt, I also just provide with them the world that they're going to be set in, because in the end, I want them to be able to react to those things. one of the theories, I don't know if theory, but statements that I like to prescribe to is the idea that the more you restrict somebody, the more chances to be creative they have,
Right.
right?
Right. Like.
Because when everybody can just do anything, when someone is given that statement, hey, you can just do anything. Um, there's decision paralysis, right?
Right.
But being restricted gives you the chance to look at all the things you can't do and say, okay, how can I do this differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what I want, what I like in my games. The whole idea of really making the player shine is the whole idea, making the player shine.
All right. All right. Thank you. So I wanna, yeah, let's hear from the others. Like, who would want to weigh in on? Yeah, what are you exploring with your games from the rest of our game designers today?
I guess I
Oh,
can go.
okay.
Go
Yeah,
ahead,
go ahead. Go
BJ.
ahead.
Okay. All right. So I'm working on a game right now, Malacanang, which is a play on Malacanang, Malacanang, which is the original etymology of the castle is that there Alacan lives. So that's the main idea of it because it's a setting that is um, inspired by, but it's not the same as Southeast Asian polities before the Europeans arrived, or at around the time they arrived, like exactly when they arrived. So one of the things that I had to look at and consider is how do I emulate the culture in such a way that it's easy for everyone to understand the culture, even if you're not Filipino, you're not Southeast Asian, for example. So so I have to drill it down to the basics, like what was the world like then? And
Mm-hmm.
one of the commonalities of a lot of the Southeast Asian regions, a lot of the swampy areas, is that we never really wanted for natural resources. We you cast your net on the Pasig River and you pull in. You don't even have to wait too long. You plant something on the ground, it will grow. It'll We have good soil, right?
Okay.
And then we have lots of wild game. So it wasn't a question. So the question now becomes, how can I play D&D here? There is no scarcity, right?
Right. Right.
Because
Because D and D. Yeah.
D&D is a game of scarcity where you get gold and you get your experience so that you can have your awesome gear and things of that nature. Less so in D&D,
Adventures or
but
scavengers, essentially, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So how can you scavenge when everything's like available? So I dug into it further, and then what is the scarcity? The scarcity isn't the natural resources. The scarcity was luxury. So it was the
Ah.
silks, it was the gold, it was the expensive things. It was having that impressive sword from Japan that you could use to intimidate your enemies. So that was how the world worked. And in a sense, we still have that. We still have that idea of attaching ourselves to what's the word to more powerful people and becoming their patrons, or them becoming our patrons and things like that. So the culture is a very, instead of being mercantile, although we were a port city,
Uh huh.
we were more of a we were more of an interrelationship kind of deal. It wasn't financial, but it was utang based. So this was what I was drilling at. I was going towards a system that I have come to call utang na loob, because it doesn't matter if you have all the money kung wala kang utang na loob.
Right.
So
And this is like a mechanic. You're talking about like a mechanical system in this game.
yes, yes,
That's called utang na loob. Okay. Cool.
yes.
Yeah.
So in and it also helps because as a player, I always hate counting um catching because uh I don't like counting money that I cannot spend in real.
Okay.
That's also why when I play RPG after RPG, when money is dropping from all the demons at Act 4 in Diablo 2, and you're like, that's a lot of money, but it doesn't mean anything.
Right. Right.
So now the utang na loob system is an abstraction of money. So there's still money involved. You're still giving them coin, or you're still giving them barter, or whatever it is you have in terms of storyline. But it's also about you owe. who you owe favors with and who owes you favors. So there's a, do you owe favor to your dad, or do you owe favor to this diwata, and
Right.
uh, so, and it also goes to the supernatural side, because we also had a very patronage relationship with our pre-colonial deities. So it was all about, okay, I will offer this meat, and rice to you, and please help me cross this river without
Right.
incident. So it was a lot of that. So that's what I was going from system, and it has been going through a few iterations. Currently, it's very similar to how macchiato use the risk die. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Sorry, how what you broke up a bit there. How what system used the risk die?
Um, Macchiato Monsters.
Ah,
It's
okay.
a
Yeah.
game that is a mix of white hack and black hack.
Okay. Like how did they use the risk die? Like I'm not too
Okay,
familiar with it. I'm just curious.
so how it works is, if it is a risk die, instead of saying D8, delta A. So it's represented with a Greek delta symbol. And
Mhm.
what it means is, you roll it normally. So for example, if it is a gun, and the gun deals D8 damage, you roll your D8 normally, but it's also a delta die. So if you roll too low, that means the delta will go down to the next step. So it becomes delta 6, for example. And then it keeps going down unless you figure out a way to replenish it. I buy it with money bags, which is also represented in this die, wherein
Mhm.
you can keep on buying, but it slowly depletes whenever you roll. So it's something like that, except that it's universal to your piety, your luxury, and also your the last one I'm missing, your honor, because
Okay.
honor in Filipino society is very much based on who can help and who helps you. So that's how I'm working with that system. And it's still undergoing tweaks. That's why I'm not releasing it yet tomorrow. So
Ah, this is still yeah. This is still like in the process of being put together.
yes, I
Okay.
think it's my 2020.
So for next session 0 or session
Yes,
1, like
session
however the
one.
naming conventions will go.
So yeah, that's what I'm looking at from mechanical perspective at the moment.
Okay, interesting. Like, it reminds me of on a related note, like from our previous stream, like we had Erwin Kasha on. He's also another game designer, really exploring, like the dynamics, the politics, the culture of our country through RPGs. Like for him, it's what's the title again? Like anong
My
pakana
project na naman
ni
si
may project na naman
Kapitan.
si Kapitan. Yeah.
Something like that.
So like
There's always road construction projects.
yes. It's really cool. I think that people are game designers are exploring. Yeah, like not just creating being Filipino creative, but also like exploring games that kind of bring out and test those waters that we don't see a lot of well right ever honestly. So yeah, that's really really cool. Jay, you wanted to weigh in also.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What was the original question again?
So yeah, what are you exploring like in your game? Like what if it's new ground or even um new iterations of existing things that are in RPGs. Like what are you exploring with your game?
Okay. The way I tackle the Sky Killers was I had a list of designer agendas.
Okay.
Like I wanted, these are the things, objectives that I was trying to do with the system I created. And I think the one that was the most important one was I already mentioned the idea of moving away from a quantitative advancement system. That's
Mm-hmm.
one. The second one, agenda, I think that was the most important when I was dealing with Sky Killers, was I wanted to emphasize teamwork. One of my concerns about D&D is that teamwork is not that how's the term? Uh, polished in the system. Meaning, sure, you can aid someone, which gives them a bonus. You can like advantage and disadvantage, but in general, the way it Paul can correct me here because
Mm.
I'm not as well versed in Drift Ed, but for the most part with spells and everything, you pretty much did things on your own. Uh, yeah, so, but I like the idea of the game that's coming to my mind is if everybody remembers Chrono Trigger.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
yeah, where there
combo.
was dual techniques, and they
Yeah.
would literally do things, and Paul mentioned anime where they do it quite a bit. So when I was creating the system, I wanted that in place. So from there, Sky Killers is all about kaiju fighting in a fantasy world. So one of the reasons why I wanted them fighting kaiju quite commonly is when you're facing enemies that large, that powerful. There's no way in hell you can tank it. There's no way in hell you can just cast a fireball with high enough levels that you'll be able to defeat it. You have to work together. You have to do something. So one of the things I really did was I created some mechanics like the setup actions, where it's not just me, I'll cast a spell or I'll attack. You can do what I'm calling in the game a setup action, where you can attack the monster, but not with the purpose of damaging him, but rather I attack him because I want to distract him. So while the monster is facing another direction, my teammate will strike him from the back, kind of thing. So that's the idea of you reward players for doing things other than dealing damage. That okay, I'm distracting the person, or the kaiju. I'm just making sure that he doesn't move, or can I attack the kaiju so that he will stoop over, so my teammate who can hit him in the head or climb easier while I do so. So I wanted to create an RPG where the only way you can beat the opponent is with coordination, not
Right.
just DPS, DPS, DPS kind of thing, which really came about it. So that's one, and that the other one is the third design agenda I wanted was I wanted a system rather when I was creating the lore. I was very much fell in love with the game Subnautica. Has anyone here ever played that game?
Subnautica
Yeah,
is the one
it's a
where
first.
you're marooned
Yeah,
on.
maroon and
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
underwater
the one.
planet. Yeah, yeah. And I love the fact that there was a lot of emphasis on the world and the biomes and the
Right.
ecosystems and the like. And for most RPGs, okay, there was a big emphasis on going underground into enclosed spaces like a dungeon or a keep or a castle or a cave. I wanted to create worlds where the wonder and the adventures are in open spaces, large fields, uh, massive forests, mountain ranges, uh, you know, um, and what better way to well, not force, but rather encourage stories where people are encouraged to go outside, but when you're forced to fight enemies that will only fit outside.
Right.
So from there, from those three agendas, I created Sky Killers. So, one, you can't beat one on your own, and the system designs it that way that there's really no way you can beat, no matter how high your level is or how powerful you are, you're not going to be able to beat one on your own. You're going to need other players, your party mates, to set you up or to do a coordinated attack. I wanted people to go outside, and I wanted to encourage GMs to create stories where it's in open areas and to create, to describe, that crystal mountain or that giant mushroom forest out there, rather than just simply saying, oh,
Right.
you're in an enclosed dungeon with traps in a long corridor,
And
kind of
you're like, you
thing.
have to be conscious about like where you can't move as much as more than
Yes.
anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, here this is more an open space traversal and that kind of thing. Uh, so from those design points, Sky Killers was basically birth. Okay, so from that very idea.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully, when I go into open beta, and we'll see if it works out the way I intended. If it doesn't, it's back to the drawing board.
It's that 20%, that last twenty
Yes,
percent that you're
that last
gonna,
twenty
yeah.
percent. Yeah.
All right, all right. Thank you, Jay. Yeah. Anyone else want to weigh in on like what specifically you are trying to explore
Okay, I think
with?
I'm next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, thank you. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
So, in my game, which is called Sea of Leaves, like Jay, I also have some design agenda.
Mm-hmm.
But the number one thing that I really wanted to do was to bring back the old school D&D aesthetic, wherein player skill is more important than your character skill. I found that a lot of my players in the 5e games, um, they wanted the really overpowered characters. They wanted to roll all 18s.
Right.
And no one was really willing to accept a character that at least from their perspective was nerfed.
Or
You know,
underpowered, yeah.
Or
or
underpowered, yeah.
underpowered, yeah. And I also kept running into a problem wherein there were no traps in a particular area, and a player would just keep rolling perception or investigate, insisting that if he gets high enough, I tell him that there are traps, even though there were no traps at all. And I couldn't pull the player
Oh,
out
memories.
from his character sheet. So yeah, I really wanted a game where it's really about your skill as a player rather than what's on the character sheet. And I found that it was the much older editions of D&D which emphasized it. Specifically the original one, so from 1974, because there were so few rules. So there was no list of skills to roll on.
Right,
So
I
it
was
was
gonna
really
say
just
that.
about it
The
was
skill
really
list.
about you being as a player thinking creatively and being clever, even if you had a underpowered character.
Right.
So that's my number one thing. That's what I really wanted. The second one was because, as I mentioned at the start of the stream, I started with Pathfinder,
Yeah.
and I could not remember all of the rules. For the life of me, I just couldn't. I very quickly took to making up rules at the table when players wanted to do something. So I wanted to have a set of rules that was easy to remember. You read actually it's just a booklet really. You read the booklet once, twice, and that's it.
And
Everything you
you're all
need,
set. Yeah.
you're all set. You're all set. I also wanted to design a game that only used D6s because I hail from Mindanao, from northern Mindanao. I'm only really in Manila because I'm taking my PhD. So back in Mindanao, you couldn't get, or actually to this day, you can't quite get the fancy polyhedrals that you
Right.
use in
The set.
D&D.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do online shopping, but back where I come from, people complain when they have to pay anything above 50 pesos. So it wasn't happening.
For shipping. Anything above
Yeah.
50 for shipping.
Actually, anything above 50 for anything.
For anything. Okay.
Wow.
Just
Yeah.
blanket.
All right.
Yeah.
We're
So
probably related.
so I needed something that just used D6s.
Readily available stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. My mechanics are not original by any means. In fact, I just blatantly ripped off Blades in the Dark. So that
It's
was
not a
easy
bad
to
thing
check
to rip
off.
off, man.
Yeah. So that was easy to check off. The more challenging design agenda that I'm not entirely sure if it works, but that's what this is for, right? Is I wanted travel to feel like travel. So I'm the sort of guy who doesn't really like to travel in the sense that I would prefer to be at the destination
Okay.
and not sit through the 12-hour bus ride or have to change rides every so often.
Uh-huh.
But since my game is about exploring a forest, then to get anywhere significant, you have to travel. And I wanted travel to really feel, grueling and taxing. I recognize that this means that maybe my game isn't for everyone. That's okay. But
That's a
yeah,
good spirit to have
it's
too. Like recognizing like who your target audience is.
yeah. That's definitely how that works. A while ago, some of you guys were mentioning about the story of the game,
Mm-hmm.
and I used to like that. I used to write, or at least I used to envision adventures with that, and it just wasn't happening at my game. And so I eventually just kind of let it go and just accepted the fact that the stories that emerge from my games is really based on what the players themselves do.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they actually explore the dungeon and beat the bad guy, then that's the story.
So for you,
What I,
it's all emergent. It's
yes,
all emergent
definitely.
gameplay and narrative.
Definitely.
Okay.
All my goal as the referee is to set up the situation. So you can go to this location, and if you do, this is what you will find. Will you interact with it? Yes or no? If yes, great, that's your story. If not, then that's part of your story, and so on.
Okay. Reminds me a lot of like the same principles that went into like West Marches as a campaign
Yes,
format.
yes, yes. West Marches is definitely an influence.
Ah, cool, cool, cool. Okay. Like for those of you who don't know what West Marches is, it's like it's a deconstructed no, deconstructed is like too that sounds so hipster, sorry. It's like it's D&D boiled down to its essentials. I would say
Yeah.
like you
Yes.
wanna go exploring, like there's no overarching narrative, like what Igan was saying. Like you explore the dungeon, that's a story. You explore the dungeon, and so yeah, interesting, interesting. So, um, wow, thank you for sharing that, Igan.
Sure.
So I think yeah, like um, we're gonna take a quick break now. Like we are pretty much it's 5 p.m.
Mhm.
So we are gonna the
Already?
stream is yeah already right
I
like
know, right?
the stream is gonna go until maybe like 6:30 ish. So I know I know like we're all human here. Like we gotta take breaks. It's been 2 hours, more than 2 hours for those of you who were in pre-stream and tech test with me for a while. So let's take a quick break. We'll call it at 5 minutes, right? So we'll
Okay.
Yeah,
be
sure.
back at 5:15. Give us a chance to kind of get up, do our business, get some refreshments, and we will be right back. So thank you again to
Okay.
our guests. Yeah, I'll put you guys. We'll be on the BRB screen, so you guys don't have to turn off your cams or anything. Don't worry about that. So yeah, we'll be back in 5 minutes, and here we go.
All right.
and we're going back to our main scene, and we are all back.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just okay, there we go. The webcams are back on, and we are back on stream. We're receiving some hiccups on our end. OBS, we're dropping quite a few frames right now. Hopefully, it's not too bad on your end. Is it like, can anyone confirm if it's choppy? Let us know in chat. Like, if if the stream quality is degrading. I don't think we have any other choice but to kind of wait it out, or just power through. It should resolve itself. Like on our end, I think it's pretty okay. It's
There we go. I think everyone's back now.
Yeah.
yeah,
On Facebook
everyone's
at
back
least.
on Facebook. Okay, all right, all right. So okay, yeah, let's get back to it. So we've covered a bunch of topics. The last one we talked about what our game designers today. We have Jay Mata, we have Paul Gabat, we have Marek, we have BJ, we have Eigen. We discussed what they were exploring through their games. So our next topic, I wanted to ask, like this wouldn't have happened, like you or part of the we mentioned earlier, part of the push that everyone got to kind of come together and put all the games in one place was gamers and GMs offering a platform, an event that lit a fire under everyone's asses, got people working on their games, making them ready for release. But
That's about right.
yeah, like what else is out there? Like what tools, or rather, what kind of support or what platforms made it possible for you guys to put your games out, right? What what was essential for you guys to be able to release these games, and yeah, like I know um maybe curious game designers to be out there aren't sure like how to navigate this, but yeah, where would you point them in terms of tools,
Tools.
support, and platforms? So let me cue. Let's who haven't we heard from for a while. Let's hear from BJ.
Oh, start with me. Okay,
Yes.
let's see. In terms of tools, I've been here for a while. So back in 2009, there wasn't a first product was designed with that uh, license and with that license in mind because I knew someone who lent me, meaning she lent me her laptop so that I could so that I could tinker with it, and she also helped me with the design. So yeah, InDesign software, and then Drive Through RPG. Well, it's the
Mm-hmm.
only major store at the time, so that's why I have a RPG account. It's technically one bookshelf, and until recently, Drive Through RPG was also RPG Now. The same, it's the same system.
Right.
And then let's see, that was okay. It took about 30% your cut on an exclusive deal, 40%. Although recently there's been a boost of other options like very good option because they have pretty good print on demand service, way better than drive-thrus in my opinion. Um, there's also itch.io, which everyone's been using. The cool kids are on itch. So
What is that? Yeah, I've heard that.
it's also an online. You could put your product handle of
Oh,
the vending side of things for
nice.
so it's originally created for indie game, but there are also a substantial GP there. And one of the things that have been driving the creation of indie games has been their game jams, the itch game jams. So there's a specific topic. You get like a few weeks up to a month to do your micro game or full fledged game in development, given certain parameters. And then you go, you do the sprints and hopefully finish something. And we've been seeing a lot of things with that. I think one of the most prolific designers in Japan. Uh, she has at least 7 games there on it. So there, those are a lot of
Wow.
options that I really want to jump in. It's that I have an exclusive deal with Drive-Thru that expires October pa. So until then, I'm kind of holding my breath.
Okay, so there's a lot of like places you can like these are essentially storefronts, right? So like drive through, and itch.io. Drive through is like a more traditional storefront, like
Yeah, and
for
it's really been the RPG store from DFC
yeah,
ever since I can remember.
right. And then itch is like a more personal storefront, like where you can put up your own
Yeah,
page, yeah.
designed with video games in mind.
But
So
people have kind of co-opted it for also for like tabletop and physical games.
yes, and then don't forget Lulu, which is more of a bookstore. That's why they have good print on
Ah.
Mm.
And Lulu
their
ships
original.
here.
Sorry, yeah,
And
they ship
Lulu
here,
ships to the Philippines, yeah.
and their usual clients who self publish. So fiction writers, short story writers, they go to Lulu. But
Ah.
interestingly, since they created in book format, we are also Lulu's also open to us. Rather, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, okay. Cool. So yeah, an abundance of platforms out there. Uh I think some of you also have, Patreons or your own personal websites. Like,
All
you
right,
know,
I do have a Patreon. Yes, yes. That I want to promote, guys. Go to
Oh.
patreon.com/Tattoo.
I
All
actually want to go there.
yeah, all of the things that I release on Patreon are because I really embrace the Patreon system. Patreon. The idea there is instead of paying someone for their product, they do their product and you support them with donations. So that's the idea. So it's a
Hence
post
patrons, yeah.
patrons
right,
versus customers.
Yeah.
So that's why all the things that I release there are free. It's just that those who are patrons have certain bonuses. Like if I have a complete product that I don't release on Patreon, they get it.
right, right. So, how about the rest of you? Like, what platforms have you taken advantage of? Like, I think BJ named a lot, so you can
Yeah.
even go into your experiences with those platforms that BJ mentioned.
Um, okay, I think BJ tackled most of the big ones already.
Mhm.
Uh, for those who want to start in game design, I guess it's not really a platform, but maybe something to help you get anyone who wants to start. But I really encourage people to listen to the Ludology podcast of Jeff Engelstein. Marek might actually know about this because even though it focuses on board games, actually the principles he talks about is pretty much in any game, and it actually is very enlightening and can get you started in preventing some of the many mistakes beginner game designers have. Because he already points it out, and so I would encourage that. Another one, again, this is board games, but it also applies for RPGs, I believe. You in Steam, if you go to Steam, there's a something called a tabletop simulator there, which is exactly what
Oh,
it sounds like. It
yeah.
simulates board games, and a lot of people actually put there a lot of board games there. It simulates card
Oh.
shuffling. It simulates tokens moving around and chips. So just from a design perspective, you want to visualize, or if you're having a hard time visualizing, especially if your RPG has components like cards, miniatures, and the like, that's a very useful tool. Not just for you to actually be able to see how it works without actually having to print out anything, but you can actually post it and let people play it, and then they'll tell you whether this card is too powerful or this ability. So, but that I would say, just from the design perspective aspect of it.
Okay, okay. I'm surprised to hear, yeah, like tabletop simulator, make it into the conversation because, you don't often think that you can find like, essentially a Steam game, like to
Yeah.
be a platform or to be of help when designing tabletop RPGs
Mm.
or even board games. Nice, nice.
Mm.
So like, if any, uh, before before I ask my next question, does anyone wanna like talk about other platforms or the
Oh yeah.
platforms and their experience with it?
For
Yes, Paul.
adventures, for D&D, because that's basic. I'm honed in on that. So
Yes.
for Dungeons and Dragons Adventures League, if you want to create content for organized play, usually you could just go to they have a website. Let me see if I can get that. Uh, the dndadventuresleague.org.
Mm-hmm.
So at that place, you will be able to download the latest community created content rules, and from there they will give you a template how to write your adventure, what format. They even have like writing tips uh, to help you out in case you're not really technical about it. And then once you publish it in DM's Guild, they also have rules there that you could check. You don't even in dmsguild.com, you don't have to put Adventures League stuff. You can put anything related to D&D. So it's still part of Drive Through RPG, I believe, but dmsguild.com is just for Dungeons and Dragons specifically. So they have, if you go like at the bottom of the website, you will be able to see there like what can you use, what can you do,
Mm-hmm.
what amount of content you can put out.
Mm-hmm.
It's all in there, and then from there it even teaches you how you will get paid, how you get the money, and so on and so forth.
So
So
they really like walk you through like what you need to do to put out uh yeah, AL legal and AL legal and quality stuff.
yeah, they will have you there. And then the Adventures League admins, those are the guys who handle everything AL related. They'll
Uh-huh.
help you out. They'll do that. Alright. Sometimes though, yeah, that's the common issue is you will have to wait for a response, which sometimes takes weeks.
I
If
see.
if they reply in a day, the gods have blessed you, or you're
You've rolled a
cursed.
20
Yes.
and yeah, it's your lucky day.
Yep.
Um yeah. Anyone else?
I have a few.
Yes, please go ahead,
Yeah.
Aigen.
So, with regard to document layout, yes, Adobe InDesign is the industry standard, but it has a close competitor in Affinity Publisher.
Affinity Publisher.
Affinity.
Yeah, Affinity Publisher.
Okay.
Affinity has the advantage of being a one-time payment platform.
As
So
opposed
in
to Adobe, which is
subscription based.
right.
So Adobe has changed its platform. The latest version is subscription based,
Mm-hmm.
and unless that's something that you're doing as your day job, it might be a bit much. So when I discovered Affinity Publisher, you can buy it legally for just over 1,000 pesos, and that's it. You're set for life.
Nice.
Not
And it
bad.
also
Cheaper
has
than a AAA
products.
game.
It also has products that compete directly with Photoshop and InDesign,
Mm-hmm.
and that other one, Illustrator. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So those are good alternatives. If you're really trying to do this on the cheap, Scribus is also good. That's an open source layout software.
All right. So lots of so Affinity is a competitor for InDesign with a
Yeah.
lot of the same I guess features and
Yes.
probably workflow. And
Yes.
then Scribus,
Scribus is open source, so
open source
it
desktop publishing.
things will definitely be different, but
Right.
you get it for free, so can't complain.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, free is good.
Uh, One other thing though, I think the resources that uh, a would-be or aspiring game designer, I think that's the better way of putting it. The
Uh-huh.
aspiring game designer will heavily depend upon what exactly do you want to do with this. If your goal is to make money, then yeah, by all means, put up the Patreon, uh, get onto Adventure. What was that?
DM's Guild.
DM's Guild. DM's Guild.
Yeah.
Yeah, do that as much as possible. Um, to be frank, these are not my goals. I think um, they would be fortunate side effects. But what I really would like to do for my own personal pleasure is to just have a well designed, nicely printed product. If it
Right.
sells, great. If it doesn't, oh well, I made a thing. And that to me is where all the fulfillment is. And with that in line, um, what helped me hone the product quite a bit simply by exposing me to everything that's out there is
Mm-hmm.
actually the individual Discord servers.
Mm.
Okay, so Discord is another like
Yeah.
platform where you can find
So
support.
I'm looking at my Discord right now, and I am part of several communities for individual games. And that
Mm-hmm.
can get overwhelming at, at a point,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
but almost all of these games will have discussion rooms regarding people who are trying to adapt the game for other things, who are writing house rules and things like that. And you can pitch your ideas there and get feedback fairly quickly from some extremely intelligent people.
Right. Like people who are, essentially subject matter experts on the
Yeah,
specific system that you're looking
yeah.
at.
So if you
Okay.
ever thought that you have this brilliant original idea, put it on Discord and you'll discover that someone beat you to it by like 3 years.
But would that stop you from pursuing that idea? Or like is that
It
like do
shouldn't.
you it should
It shouldn't
Well,
stop you. All right.
um, maybe it's worth noting, at least to anyone watching, that
Yes.
technically speaking, you cannot legally you cannot uh, copyright rules.
Yes, yes.
So it's okay to quote unquote copy, but what's important is how you brand it, how you set it up, and as long as it's not an exact copy of it,
Mm-mm.
of the
Right.
rule to rule, page to page, it should be fine. But yeah, from a game design perspective, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you know um, getting inspiration, so to speak, from
Yes.
other rules.
Right. I think yeah, we were reviewing for one reason or another, like Wizards of the Coast's open gaming license. This is kind of the parallel to DM's Guild, right? And Adventures
Right.
League, because
Mm.
like with OGL, you're kind of dealing with the rule set more than an adventure or yeah. But basically you're creating something that is not D&D with the D&D rules. And like one of the things that
Mm.
you can't pirate, like while you're free to use like D20s for other things, like there are things like uh it's not trademark. I forget what it is, but basically you can't use things that are unique to D&D. Like mind flayers are I th- like to my surprise, mind flayers are unique to D&D and no
Yeah.
other game can use mind flayers. Um
That's
Beholders too.
interesting.
beholders too. You can't use those elements at all. Like of course, obviously any mention of Faerun or the Forgotten Realm setting and so on.
Well, it also depends.
Okay, yeah,
Because
please go ahead.
you can't use Mind Flayer,
Uh-huh.
but you can use Psychic Squid.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
work
Oh,
around that.
exactly.
okay.
Or you can't use
Okay.
Beholder, but you can use Eye Pirate. So there are ways around it.
There are
There's
But
ways
ways
you
around.
know,
around it.
if you really
And
want to use that one,
again, to give another example, okay, again, when it comes to, let's say, this something as innocuous and mundane as using a card and turning it sideways to in at least in board
Tapping,
game
yeah.
design, yeah, tapping. That mechanic cannot be copyrighted, but weirdly enough, Wizard of Coast has copyrighted the term tap. You cannot actually use the word tapping
Yeah.
in your rules. But if you'll notice, a lot of games actually use other words for it. They say exhausting the card.
Yeah.
L5R says
Bow.
bowing the card or
Yeah.
something to that effect. So you can actually use the rules, but you cannot uh,
It's the label. Yeah, the
labeling,
presentation.
the branding kind of
yeah.
thing.
Yeah. I just like for those of you who want to use D20 OGL, D&D 5e OGL, another thing of note that you can't use are number 1, feats. All any and all feats you cannot like republish.
Oh.
Mm.
Except for
Yeah, we're,
grappling. Only grappling can be used. And also character creation rules. So yeah, there's a bit of
yeah.
yeah,
uh,
not
but
precaution, but yeah.
but to clarify with the feats, you can create,
Yes, you can create
you,
new feats.
but you can't use the feats that are already there.
Yes. So yeah. So yeah. Uh, what we're gonna do real quick. So we're having some bandwidth problems, and I think it's with Restream. So what we're gonna do real quick, we're gonna stop the stream real briefly, and then we're just gonna um we're going to stream on Twitch. Now, what that means is, like, for those of you watching, the streams on YouTube and Facebook and Mixer are going to stop. But then you can, if you want to continue watching, you're gonna have to watch us on Twitch live. But if you're looking for the VOD, don't worry. We are going to cut up the Twitch stream and essentially just repost the replay on your platform of choice. So we're gonna take a real quick like micro break while I stop the stream on Restream, and then we're gonna be exclusively on Twitch from here on. Okay, so yeah, sorry about this. Just some technical hiccup with our bandwidth over here on my streaming machine. So we will be right back. Don't go anywhere, especially if you are already watching us on Twitch anyway. So stay tuned and